Welcome to Stock Talk with Josh and Nico. This is episode 58, and we have Chuck on the show once again. It's good to have you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Yeah, round of applause for Chuck.
Thank you. Round of applause.
I've
Been putting up with Nico for like a half hour now, so round of applause for that because we've been arguing about all kinds of silly things.
Honestly, might have been like for 45 minutes to like almost an hour.
There you go.
Well, if I didn't have to go get you guys Dunkin', could have.
I didn't need anything. You're like, I need Dunkin', I need coffee.
You were the one selling the nitro to me, okay?
You got no. Let's real quick for everyone who's listening. Nico first, I don't want to get like a coffee because I don't want to be up late at night.
I don't want to be up all night, right?
This guy comes back with like two of them. Like,
then he's like, well, I wanted a nitro and then I get a double espresso. He's like, but I don't want to be up all night. I'm going to nitro and espresso at 6 o'clock at night.
I'll probably be up.
He's going to call you at 3 in the morning and be like, hey, I got some show ideas.
I know. Something about Tesla. Like, I don't know. But, yeah, thank you. Round of applause, Chuck,
thank you.
Once again. No, honestly, we should, change the show to Stock Talk with Josh, Nico, or Chuck, Josh, Nico, because how many times have you been on the show
This is my only
now?
second time. I know it seems like a long time.
I know, but,
I mean, I'll come back whenever, though. It's fun with you guys.
Yeah. No, I also was just saying we might also need to change the logo because this is kind of
Chuck's face on
outdated.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so might as well change the
Well,
show.
I mean, you guys need to update all your AI pictures. You should just put AI in the background of your images here.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. You know what? That is a good idea because now we can really just make an AI.
Technology has changed since this logo was
I know.
made.
You guys made this like an paint or something a
This
few years ago.
this was
Yeah,
was the pre-AI days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she made it like through like Canva or something like that.
Yeah. Anyways, the first topic on our list that we need to bring up is this new idea that I think the New York Stock Exchange is introducing, where the stock market is not going to be closed anymore. It's going to be open 24/7, just like Bitcoin or other crypto. So, do you guys have any initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it though. Like it sounds nice because a lot of times when I'm like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, like I get like an idea or something like, oh, let me put some money in this, and it's like, oh, you gotta wait till like the morning for it to like really show up. But I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't know either. I don't know if it's going to be a good thing. I don't know if it's going to help with volatility. I don't know. It's going to be weird. I mean, it's going to be kind of nice because then if it's like 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, I have a new idea or a new stock I want to buy, I could do that. You know, that's good.
It is like a nice changing of the times, like how us younger people, we get in the stock market. We are kind of like more like how me and you like 24/7 thing.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be up late at night thinking about ideas. Things
I'm
like
going to
that.
say
So
it's a good thing. I'm going to say I like it.
I'm still kind of on the fence, so I need like a little bit more information on it.
I know. Sure.
I'm completely against it.
Really? Why?
Let me tell you. Well, okay, and here's why. So look at even like earnings. You guys are talking about earnings and stuff like that with Tesla. I think that will completely upset the way that we manage earnings. I think, for instance, here's what I think. Now, if you ever watch Bitcoin, like you talked about buying Bitcoin earlier, you can go to bed and wake up and Bitcoin's down like 20%.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy like that. It could be up 20%. But I'm saying what I can imagine, though, is a scenario where you've got all these, the BlackRock type people that are doing, like they got those AI, basically it's AI just investing 24/7. They're just going to look for times like at 3 in the morning and go, there's no volume. I could buy, and I can manipulate the market.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing is that think about now. So one of the things about having the market the way it is now is you have a level playing field. Everybody knows
those hours.
our hours, and it's feasible to do that. So now you got to go to bed at some point. You know what I mean? Like you got to go to bed. The average small investor has to go to bed. BlackRock or Citadel or whoever, they can have 3 shifts. They can have people at the desk all night long.
That's true, yeah.
They can have people.
But why would that really alter the stock price?
Because remember, you look at no, I'm saying you think of it in terms of price. There's a whole bunch of other factors that go into it, like
Yeah.
volatility. There's volume.
Yep.
There's all these things that can happen. I mean, if you ever heard of a ladder attack and stuff like that?
No.
So basically, people like the whales, they can manipulate stock. They can manipulate price action. They can create buying walls and selling walls.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, people that have the money and have the technology and the manpower can manipulate it every day. And this is basically just gives them 24/7 access to manipulate the market.
So I've even seen weird cases where a couple of months ago, I think I sold a stock, and when you looked at the stock chart, it was only at a certain price. It was, let's say it was at 410 or something. But my stock sold at like 420,
Right.
and I was like, how did it sell at 420 if the chart doesn't even show it going past 410? And then you could go and look up, like I don't know if it happens for like a 1 second or something, but somehow my shares were sold at a higher price than what it even showed on the graph. So things like that are weird.
So I'll tell a quick story. I once bought millions and millions of shares of a penny stock.
Yeah.
It was like a local airline carrier, and they were filing bankruptcy. And so I bought the stock at like 7 cents. And finally, next thing I knew, like I just kept buying it because I'm like, I have a feeling it's going to pop. And I'm like, I got a feeling people are talking about it. They're like, okay, it's a race against the clock because you got to sell it before they go into bankruptcy. Because at that point, then you're locked out. And at a certain point, I swear, I think I owned like 20% of the company. I'm like, if I buy any more, I'm going to be like on the board of directors. But it was funny though, because I ended up playing it up to like 20 cents to 25 cents, whatever it was. And you could see the volatility. You could see,
Yeah.
you know, like when I owned millions, like no joke, millions of shares of the stock at like 7 cents, when I would put in buy orders and sell orders, you can see that wall. You can
all
see
that.
the volatility
that's crazy.
literally just from one guy. And there's a story about a guy. There's a cool documentary about some guy, like some kid in England that literally was able to like manipulate the oil market. He made like oil go to zero for a few minutes. It was like this whole thing because you can put in orders and it's sort of like you're creating like fake demand. You're putting in if you, let's say a stock is at $20 and then you put in a whole bunch of orders at like $50. Somebody's like, what's going on? Everybody's putting in $50. So I mean, it's like you can easily manipulate the market. Like not you personally, you shouldn't because they'll come knocking at your door. But I'm saying it's been done before. It's happened.
But that's
regularly.
That's gonna be more so in the case of super small market cap stocks and stuff.
No, it could be anything. It could be the SPY. It could be anything. I mean, you see that all the time where you've got whales putting in orders, putting in buy orders, putting in sell orders. I mean, you could see it. They call them, like I said, they call them buy walls and sell walls.
But it'd have to be for $100 million.
Yeah, it is. That's nothing to them. That's nothing. There's these these $1 trillion companies. That's nothing to them.
Right. Well, I mean, look at like even the biggest companies in the world, the Google, the Tesla, the Meta. Some of those stocks that like even Google, for example, last week, it went up 10% or so in a day, and I believe it had to be at 1.7 trillion or so. 1.8 trillion.
Think about like, for instance, we have when something's going crazy, we have market halts. So like you could have a stock like
GameStop.
GameStop, same idea. Or like I was watching with True Social, the Trump stock was doing that.
Yeah.
So they have these halts. What happens in the middle of the night? Like everybody's asleep, and all of a sudden, somebody has good. Like imagine we were talking earlier about Boeing. Let's say middle of the night, there's a plane crash.
Yeah.
We're all sleeping. You don't know it.
Oh,
You're going to wake up
saying.
in the morning, and guess what? Your Boeing stock. You know what I mean? Your Boeing stock's gonna be down 25%. You didn't get a chance to do anything with it. The people that were up had somebody at the desk like, oh, Boeing crashed. We're going to sell all of our stock. You know what I mean? Like, so all those guys are going to dump their Boeing
You're
stock.
right, but that makes it more interesting, though, kind of. Like,
I guess if
like
you don't mind losing money,
then
it's not your money.
You can have a competitive edge then if you can,
right,
be on things
how
at the
many
right
people,
hour.
You know how like these traders, it's all like these junkies, like adrenaline junkies and stuff. You're going to end up with traders that are up for 3 or 4 days. Like these guys that play video games till they die. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be dudes that are going to be up all night until they finally die. I mean, honestly, it's going to affect people's health. It's going to mess people. There's going to be dudes that are just going to be up. They're going to be just taking like trucker speed for 3 days straight.
I got addicted to stock trading. I never went to sleep.
But think about that, though.
You're
is
right.
You're right. Is it out of the realm? I mean, that's what I'm saying.
It could be me, honestly.
It could be anybody. That's what I'm saying. Is I think that would be, and again, you don't think about that. You're like, okay, it's neat. I can buy them, but I think there would be some serious repercussions. But then also, people like China could seriously mess with us in the middle of the night, and we're all going to wake up and go, what happened? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like that's my biggest concern about that. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I could see certain markets like you have futures. Like we can go right now and look at the futures for tomorrow on Sunday night. So I mean, you can kind of gauge what's going to happen. So you could play futures right now. You can play certain things.
You can kind of already do that a little bit with the before hours and after hours trading.
Right.
Right.
But it's more expensive. But then, like I said, a lot of times you'll see when somebody reports earnings, like you talking about, was it Meta and Facebook the other day? That's all after earnings stuff. Or after hour stuff.
And the stock is still moving.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, imagine again that same idea though, is that it's not.
If you're awake at 3 in the morning.
But I'm saying, okay, so somebody has earnings, something happens at like 5 o'clock or whatever, and then at a certain point the market closes. So you're like, okay, people are done buying or selling or whatever, and then you go back at it 8:30 the next morning, and you go, okay, what's going on? Now it's like they could just be trading Facebook after hours just in the middle of the night. And,
I see what you're talking about.
You know what I mean? So like that's what I'm saying is that it would give people that have the manpower to trade in them. It would
the
give them
time, too.
so much more. But I'm saying, like, the people that can afford to hire a bunch of dudes,
Yeah.
hire some dudes in India to work the desk in the middle of the night or whatever. Like, you can't do that. You got to go to bed. You know what I mean? Like, you got to
Yeah.
go to bed. Citadel doesn't. Citadel can have guys all over the world trading for them 24/7.
That's true.
So that's going to give them a huge leg up over the average person, I think.
But at the same time, like let's say how you were saying that Boeing had a problem and the
Yeah.
stock crashes in the middle of the night. That pretty much already happens now, where if that bad news comes out before the
Okay, but
market opens,
now think about what happens. though.
pre-market, that stock's down 20%.
Okay, but what happens though? As soon as the market opens, there's gonna be circuit breaker halts.
I don't know
but
what
I
that is.
So basically, that what you're talking about with GameStop. So like a stock can't go to zero. There's circuit breaker halts.
Oh,
There's
okay.
volatility halts. So like if there's stocks that are going crazy, like you can see it. Like a stock opens. Truth Social, like I said, did this a few times. Where like it was like a $6 stock and it went up to $75, whatever it ended up doing. But you cannot have a stock explode or drop without volatility. You have halts. So the New York Stock Exchange will halt a stock if there's too much volatility. It's basically something that they learned from the stock market crash, because you had this panic in the morning and then everybody started selling everything and there was no stopping it. So everybody was just like sell, 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 sell until we basically caused a Great Depression, right?
Mhm.
So now we have circuit breaker halts. So a stock can't.
Well, then
like,
you're forcing people not to sell their shares.
so there's an interesting question. I mean, I've run into situations where I bought a stock, like you said, I bought a stock after hours. Something happened, it blew up, and then it just started ripping first thing at 8:30, 9:30 Eastern. It started ripping, and there's volatility halts. So like I'm sitting here going, okay, my stock just doubled, but I can't sell it. You're right. So I'm like sitting here, and then they actually give you a clock, like it's like a penalty box. You're like watching the clock count down. It's like, okay, 5 minutes is up, and then they start
Well,
trading again.
I mean, I have an example where during the AMC thing, I bought put options when AMC was at its peak.
Mhm.
Okay, and my option, I think within a day, I was up at least 1,000%.
Sure.
Something insane.
Right.
Something 2,000%. Something
Mhm.
like that. Well, I couldn't. They wouldn't let me sell it.
Right.
So I made $0.
Well,
on
okay,
that-
so
on that
you're talking
trade.
about something completely different. There was a whole conspiracy about Robin Hood taking
Oh yeah.
the.
I
Did
remember
they buy?
that,
They took the sell button away for GameStop or whatever
Yeah.
it was. And there's still lawsuits going on about that right now. But again, you're talking. That's a whole new
the
level of
options
manipulation.
thing is different.
Well, no, you're right though. I mean, that's the whole idea. Is if people can't buy the stock or sell the stock, then your options aren't going to do anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the whole idea. But again, to your point though, that's the same idea. If you buy a put option on a stock, you buy a 1-day expiration, and then it's halted all day long, then you just threw your money away because it's not doing anything, right?
Mhm.
So,
yeah.
but again, I mean that becomes the interesting question about should we have volatility halts? Should we have like you've got minimums to day trade? You need to have $25,000. I mean, should you be able to? There's a lot of questions about is this truly a free market if they
Right.
have all these rules? I don't know.
Well,
It's a valid point.
I think if you're going to freeze up anybody's shares, it should be those companies like BlackRock and Citadel who own.
But okay, so this becomes where I want to lead this conversation is guess who gives your congressman the most money?
Yeah, them.
those.
BlackRock and Citadel. It's you know what I mean? Like it's Wall Street. So everybody in Congress that's in charge of those rules, they all have a breakfast, and everybody in Wall Street writes them a big check.
So you think they're going to try to help out BlackRock instead of like the regular investor?
You're gonna bite the hand that feeds you?
But no, isn't like what's it called? Not the what's the financial organization?
What are you talking about? The Fed,
Not the Fed.
the FDIC?
FDIC. Isn't their whole purpose is to help
You're talking about the SEC, maybe SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission.
maybe that.
Okay, it's one of those 3-letter agencies.
SEC.
Okay,
Yeah, it's SEC because
Right.
that's the one
and
that
and so here becomes guess who runs the SEC? Just like guess
the
who
government.
runs?
a
No,
government
right.
agency,
But I'm
right?
saying guess who?
BlackRock.
No, but I'm saying guess who? Like is like when you look at who's in charge of the health agencies, it's former executives from Pfizer. Look who's in charge of the
Yeah.
SEC, former people from Wall Street. And they talk about the revolving door, where like a guy on the SEC, the head of the SEC, he makes these favorable decisions. And guess what happens as soon as he leaves the SEC? Now all of a sudden everybody's paying him $500,000 to give a speech at a luncheon, right? I mean that goes back to my whole core argument about the political ramifications, the politics of the stock market. Is there's a lot of people I argue with all the time. They're like, "Oh, I'm all about investing. I don't care about politics." I'm like, "You're going to lose your butt then." Because
Yeah.
everything in the market is directly related to politics and decisions and what's going on in the world. I mean, even like,
yeah, we started to notice that too, because like even when we first started the show, we're trying to keep politics out of it, but like over
you can't,
time,
right?
like
I mean,
it's
you don't
kinda
have to take a
impossible.
side, but you need to. I mean, that's one of the things for you guys doing the show. You need to be. It needs to be part of the equation. Like like last Sunday or whatever it was, all of a sudden we started hearing about Israel and Iran and all that stuff. I mean, the second that happened, I said right away, go look at oil futures. They exploded.
Yeah.
As soon as Israel dropped a bomb on Iran, oil futures went up. I told everybody, go buy gas. It doesn't even make sense. But again, it's irrational because as soon as a country that produces oil gets bombed, the assumption is, oil prices are going to go up. Okay? I mean, that's the whole thing is, I mean, even you look at COVID and the lockdowns, they had a huge effect on the markets. They had a huge effect on supply chains, all these things. We were talking earlier about, like, if you look at lumber futures, for instance, you can look at lumber futures, and that gives you lumber futures have been way down the last 6 months, which is good if you need to buy lumber, but that's also an indicator of the housing market. If they don't think people are going to be building a bunch of houses, that's what uses the most lumber is houses. If they don't think that they're going to be building houses, then they're not going to buy as much lumber.
That doesn't make any sense, though, because the housing market's strong.
But here's the thing. What's affecting the housing market right now? So there's a whole thing. There's a whole sort of Damocles hanging over that market. What is it? It's Fed Chair Powell sitting here baiting them, going, maybe I'm going to lower interest. Maybe I won't. And that's what's been manipulating the market. I say every time you can see it. Like literally, you can watch the SPY, and the second Fed Chair Powell opens his mouth, it drops like 5%. You can see it. I post these pictures on my Facebook. Is it right at 10 o'clock? Guess what happened? It's the moment Fed Chair Powell opened his mouth. But that's what I'm saying is that literally that one guy can say we had a meeting and here's what we did. So he's manipulating the market.
And we're gonna say it this week because I'll put it on a list, but having a meeting this week.
Yeah, they're having a Fed. So I mean, again, the Fed meetings are huge because right now everybody's waiting on the rates. They're going rates are up, and they keep saying the rates are up to slow inflation. And they're saying, well, maybe we'll do, and so everybody's sitting here waiting. And then even his non-answer of saying, we're not lowering rates or we're still thinking about it, that tanked the market a few weeks ago. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that literally him saying nothing is enough to affect the markets. At the end of the day.
But that makes sense, though. I mean, because that's still an indication or a sign or that shows investors like what the sentiment is, you know? So that makes sense of why that's influencing people.
But why should one guy be able to just give a speech and
because that one guy has a really important role.
Right. But I'm saying, so how easy is that? Okay, so now go back to it. Guess what the SEC is allowed to do? Insider trade. Just like Nancy Pelosi and everybody in the Congress. We were talking earlier about basketball. Basketball players can't bet on themselves, but the SEC can. I mean, imagine a world where I can buy a bunch of put options because I know my boss is going to give a speech in 2 hours.
But you can't really prevent that, though.
It's called insider. Martha Stewart went to jail for it. Why doesn't Nancy Pelosi? Why doesn't the people at the SEC? You know what I mean? Like that's the whole thing is
because they have a lot of power.
There you go. Who writes the laws?
And they have a lot of connections.
Right. Nancy Pelosi's worth $100 million.
But my point is, for pretty much every person on the planet, you don't really have a say in how that works. And that doesn't mean that just because those things go on that it has to negatively affect you. You can still make money and be successful.
It absolutely can, though, because if I'm buying options on the day, I buy options and all of a sudden Fed Chair Powell shows up. Well, like he affected my option. So here I want to tell you. I was thinking about this. I want to tell you.
I don't see how that's unfair.
Okay,
How is that unfair?
I'll give you a perfect example. Okay, when you buy options, like right now, like Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, they buy a lot of options like NVIDIA, Tesla, whatever.
Yep.
When you buy an option, it's a binary contract. It's you and somebody else. It's kind of like the two of us saying, I'm going to flip a coin. If it's heads, I'm going to give you $5. If it's tails, you're going to give me $5, right? Okay, you buy a stock option. Nancy Pelosi's and Paul Pelosi are on the other side of that option. She knows what's about to happen, and you don't. She just took your money.
Okay.
So how is that fair? How is that fair to you?
For one, even the most common sense thing of this is what's going to happen when this happens doesn't always happen.
You're right, but how did Nancy Pelosi? So understand this, and this isn't just Nancy. She's the poster child of this.
Yeah,
she was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars when she went into office. She's now worth $100 million.
Okay, so then
by literally just sitting in Washington.
So are you saying it'd be fair for her not to be allowed to invest in stocks?
Absolutely.
Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe that's good.
Or at the very least. So this gets to my point. So I've been using StreetBeat, and what's fun about StreetBeat, and I'll show you guys real quick if you haven't heard about it.
What is StreetBeat?
So StreetBeat is a trading platform, And here's what's funny about it. And this is why it's
You get
mainly
to beat the street.
yes, you get to beat the street. There you go. That's exactly where the name comes from.
What?
So check out some of these options. So these are basically mutual funds. Let me get into it real quick.
I would have called mine wall beaters.
And I'll show you some of the options. So we've got
Whoa, wait, what?
so here's some of the options. So some of the things you can invest in. U.S.
The
Congress
Nancy
bonds.
Pelosi tracker.
The Nancy Pelosi tracker.
I've seen that.
So Nancy Pelosi is required within 45 days to disclose what she bought.
Yeah.
So
make
these
fun.
guys literally look at her disclosure and go, "Oh, Nancy bought more NVIDIA. We're going to buy more NVIDIA." Because she knows something we don't because she's worth $100 million.
I do that too. You remember when I bought Roblox? When she
Yeah. And how does
There's
that
even
work
one.
out?
So check
I
this
know.
out. They even have
True,
a Taylor
yeah.
Swift strategy. They have a U.S. house buy strategy. We're going to put
Taylor
a
Swift. What
I'm
does
gonna-
she have to do with the stock market?
I'm going to have you. I don't even know, but I mean, again, it's stuff that she touches. Maybe
Yeah, but you-
Ticketmaster or whoever. I don't know.
Yeah, but you know you brought up the same point. Like so when she bought Roblox, I bought it at the same time.
Yeah.
Roblox went down. So yeah, sometimes
She
it's
loses
not,
sometimes.
Sometimes
Right.
she does loses, but I think Chuck is like saying, say you're playing football and you kind of know the other team's playbook or know his 5 key
Sure,
plays.
you have insider
better
information that
chance
is
of
not.
you-
It's not a fair playing ground for everybody. Compared what I mean. But again, are they going to make a law that says we're not allowed to?
Well, okay, so look at it this way. So if she buys stock, that's not a big deal because you buy stock and it goes up or it goes down. If she buys an option, so like you go, I'm optimistic about NVIDIA, but let's say Nancy Pelosi on Friday was in a meeting where she's in a meeting, top secret, nobody knows, it's not public information. She's in a meeting and they go, hey, so it turns out the Chinese hacked NVIDIA and they have a backdoor in everybody's chips. When that comes out, what's going to happen? NVIDIA is going to go down 20%.
Yeah.
So she on Friday calls Paul and goes, Paul, put $1 million NVIDIA puts. You're
okay.
bullish on NVIDIA, and you buy options, you buy calls on NVIDIA.
Okay.
That's true.
okay,
And-
then-
So she
and then-
knows something you don't,
Right.
and she's going to make money, and you're going to lose money because she knows something that she shouldn't be allowed to trade
No,
on.
I get what you're saying.
And you don't know that.
And
So
then
it's an
plus
unfair advantage.
She really doesn't have to have any evidence of that even taking place. That's just like speculation.
But again,
It's just pure
Okay,
speculation.
then the
joke
that will
is-
bring it
then
down.
she has to disclose that.
she does 45 days after the fact.
No, not that. Then the law needs to be before she puts the order in.
Okay.
The news when
But she's in charge of the law.
Yeah.
Tell her that. Don't tell me that. That's what I'm saying. That's what sucks about it is she gets to say that 45 days later after she already made. I mean, her and Paul make bets like multi-million-dollar bets on like Nvidia or Tesla or whatever, and you're right, they lose sometimes, but they make millions of dollars every year on these options. You don't put millions of dollars into options unless you're for sure something's about to
Yeah.
happen. You don't put millions of dollars in.
Yeah,
It
but-
doesn't matter how
but
rich
you
you
also
are.
yeah, but they're also a lot of those stocks, those companies are Nvidia, Google, Tesla, stuff like that.
Right.
Those are some of the most.
But okay, so she buys several $1 million in Tesla options, and then like a week later, President Biden goes, "Oh, by the way, we're going to spend a whole bunch of money on EV," and Tesla goes up 20%.
Yeah.
True.
She knew something, you know. And then the guys that bet against her, the guys that bought puts on Tesla, they lost their butts, and she made a whole bunch of money.
Okay, but again, that goes back to what I'm saying, where we're not going to really influence what the rules are,
Right.
and it doesn't mean it's the end of the world just because that stuff goes on.
Well,
It doesn't mean it's the end of the
right.
world for us, because
Okay.
we can still make plenty of money.
well, but again,
Maybe we can't.
But that's what sucks about it is so do you know what you guys know the Martha Stewart story? So she
little bit, yeah.
she owned
No, I
stock in a
don't.
company.
Yeah.
Okay. She owned a lot of stock in a company. I forget what they did. I'm guessing it had something to do with cooking or cookware. And her friend was on the board or whatever at that company.
Yeah.
So her friend calls her and says, "Hey Martha, our company's having problems." So she did what any normal person would do if her friend gave her that phone call. What did she do? She sold all of her stock. And then they announced that there was a problem or whatever was going on. The stock tanked. She went to jail. So why is it that Martha Stewart goes to jail and Nancy Pelosi doesn't for doing the exact same thing?
Because Nancy Pelosi is more at the top, where she is.
Well,
more-
she's in politics.
she's in politics. She
No,
has-
no politician goes to jail for that.
Why is
Martha
it only
Stewart does.
Nancy Pelosi? Isn't it like all?
It's
what
all
is-
mean,
of them.
yeah,
It is
yeah.
all. But I'm saying Nancy Pelosi is the poster child of this because she's made $100 million doing this.
What's her position?
She was Speaker of the House. So I mean, that's the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
thing is
Yeah, she's speaking house for like 5 years, wasn't she?
probably longer than that. But she
yeah.
was in Congress, just like everybody in Congress that's been there for decades. But again, so go back to that idea though. Being a millionaire puts you in not necessarily the 1% or whatever it is, 1-2%, wherever we're at numbers wise. The average congressperson is like the 1%ers though. So they're in charge. They're in charge of the world, the 1%ers in
Yeah.
Congress. They didn't even start that way. They started off with a little bit of money in the bank, and all of a sudden they're 1%. Just like
Yeah,
Bernie Sanders.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing with the politicians. You could argue, I think you could easily argue, that the lobbyists and the
Mhm.
money that goes into those politicians, those people have more influence.
So let me tell you a story about that. The wealthy. So it used to be like, you remember like 90210 Beverly Hills. Everybody knows that zip code. Used to be one of the wealthiest zip code in the country.
Beverly
okay?
Hills,
was one of the
it
wealthiest.
probably still is.
No.
No.
Guess what the wealthiest zip codes are in this country?
Probably somewhere in Texas.
No.
What?
So check this out.
Naples.
People that work in Washington, they all live like in Virginia, like in Arlington.
Oh yeah. Makes
So
sense, yeah.
the zip codes around Washington D.C.
Yeah.
are the wealthiest zip codes in this country.
I've heard that.
So like Arlington, Virginia, all the
That
places,
makes sense.
because the people that have money don't live in Washington; they live in the suburbs.
Mhm.
So the suburbs of Washington D.C., just like you said, all of the lobbyists, where everybody live, that's where all the money is.
Yeah.
So that's and the same with like in New York, like in like in Connecticut or New Jersey, whatever. So
Delaware too.
the people, well, Delaware is a whole different thing about the taxes and stuff like that. But I'm saying the people that live outside of New York and outside of Washington D.C., especially, those are the wealthiest zip codes. Why? Because of all the lobbyists, like you said. That's where all the money is.
But the
It shouldn't-
lobbyists come from the root of the money is still tracing back to
The companies
the companies,
Right.
the corporations. So the biggest in the
or
world.
anybody. It could be unions. Could be anybody. Could be
Yeah,
anybody
unions
that has
too.
money.
Anybody who has money.
Right.
Right.
So they have lobbyists. And they
what-
throw money around.
So whatever their agenda or goals are,
Right.
incentives, whatever, that's where that money's going to go into.
Right.
Making those laws try to happen.
So what if what they're pushing for is good for them but not for you? And that's what we
Right.
got to get into when we get
Okay,
into
well, so
inflation and stuff like that.
This is so Meta stock. You know how Meta was $100
Mm-hmm.
like recently, and now it's $500. Well, I was talking to somebody about that, and they said, "Oh, that's just because they said it went from 350 to 100 because Zuckerberg wanted it." Or they said since when Zuckerberg changed his mind and said, "Okay, we're going to invest $100 billion a year in AI, and we're going to work on the metaverse, and we're going to lose a bunch of money on it," and the stock went down
Right.
70%. They said, "Oh, well, Zuckerberg kind of planned that, knowing Wall Street would sell it." So that he could buy back a bunch of shares at 100, and then now when he announces, "Oh, we're actually going to work on profitability," then the stock goes then it 5x's. you
Right.
know?
So if they could prove, well, again, that's.
But again,
if they could prove that, he go to jail.
so you could say that's insider stuff, right? But at the same time, guess what? I benefited from that.
right.
Okay.
I've also lost. I saw at the beginning when my son bought an Oculus and all of his friends are buying Oculuses for the metaverse. I was like, this is gonna be huge for Facebook.
Yeah.
I bought Facebook. I bought options, and he reported earnings. They said we're losing money on the metaverse.
Yep.
I lost my money.
Yep.
Right? I mean, again, and you're saying that Zuckerberg was manipulating the market by doing that. So I lost money because of whatever Zuckerberg did.
It doesn't mean he purposely.
I'm saying if he did or didn't. I'm just saying I lost money because of what you just talked about. I absolutely lost money on that.
Yeah, but you also kind of
I was playing the earnings on that.
you were playing earnings, which
Mhm.
is inherently
I
10
agree.
times more risky than just buying
I
the
agree.
stock.
But I'm saying you're saying that he purposely did that. though.
I'm saying it's possible.
So I'm
What
saying,
was
do I have a case against him now? I could sue him and go, I lost money. You can have class action lawsuits. There's a class
Yeah.
action on GameStop and all kinds of stuff.
I don't think you can.
You can
you can
absolutely have
definitely do
class
that.
action
No,
lawsuits.
because you're not gonna the executives at that company
if you can prove you have,
you can't prove it though.
I'm saying if you could prove that, or you could prove that in a court of law. So you're, let's say you're the CEO of a company and you decide, like, let's say you become the CEO of an oil company and you decide, I'm an environmentalist, so I'm going to shut down oil rigs because I'm worried about
Yeah.
endangered turtles.
Yeah.
That's going to affect the bottom line of your company, right? That's
Yeah.
not in the shareholders' best interest. So
Yep.
they could sue you for that. You could say, you could go on TV and go, I'm so worried about the turtles, I'm shutting down oil drilling.
That's like what Elon Musk did.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, in what
Yeah,
regard?
but that's why Elon Musk got in trouble 4 years ago on Twitter when he said taking Tesla private at $420
Right. So
a
he
share.
manipulated the market, right?
Yep.
So
I
again,
remember that, yeah.
same
Yep.
idea though. He's manipulating the market. So there's a valid argument that he's not acting in the shareholders' best interest. So they could sue.
And
they
that's
could
what he got in
absolutely-
trouble for.
They could absolutely sue him for that. Could there be an SEC investigation?
That's what
And
happened.
if they
yeah.
found him liable, then there's a class action lawsuit. He's lose tens of millions of dollars if they could prove that. Absolutely. I mean, they go after GameStop CEO, the AMC CEO. I mean, they're going after all.
I just think the insider information and people who are kind of they have the right connections or whatever. They're always going to get like there's probably a bunch of people who are in those positions they're just going to get that insider information and
even there was a story that came out.
Aren't.
There was a story that came out a couple weeks ago about a guy. His wife worked at I think BP, and he literally heard her on a call. Like there was a Zoom call. He heard bad news on the Zoom call, and guess what he did? He bought a bunch of puts on BP, made like $50,000, and then she's like, "Wait, why did?" And she like blew the whistle on her husband. Now they're like they got divorced and stuff. But he made a whole bunch of money. I think it was BP or it was an oil company. He bought puts. Thing went public. She called him out on it. So I mean, again, it's just like even just overhearing that, and they're going after him for insider trading.
And that's like a simple one. That's I mean, you're never going to prevent that. It's one thing if you're like.
But I'm saying, but here's the thing: they're going after him. They don't go after Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell. What I'm saying is that they go after Martha Stewart, but they don't go after Nancy Pelosi.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point.
So go ahead. What else do we want to go?
So this next thing on the topic, though,
this is way different.
So I put this on the list because more so like the entertainment industry, like TV, all of that. But Paramount and Skydance are like nearing a merger. So I also want to bring this up too because I think the last couple of weeks we also missed Disney Plus and Hulu all becoming into like one app now.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so now you can even watch Hulu and Disney Plus on the same app though.
Okay, good.
See, you guys aren't old enough to remember when we had just like cable.
This is why I'm actually going to bring it up.
So, what do you mean?
Okay, no, I'm saying when I was a kid, when cable first, I mean, it was a thing, but so as cable was like $15, and then they kept getting more and more. So cable was like $15 or $20, right? And then most recently, like before apps and stuff like that, it was like $150 a month to get everything you wanted. Mm-hmm. So the joke was, we can't wait because it's called a la carte. The idea was, like the most expensive channel is ESPN. So I'm paying for cable. I never watch ESPN. I never watch like the Golf Channel or something. Costs me like $10 a month.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never once watched the Golf Channel. I'm not a sports guy. So half my cable bill was going to ESPN and the Golf Channel, and I've never once watched those channels. So everybody always said we need a la carte.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with the app. So the joke is now everybody's got all these apps, and now we're paying just as much as we would have if we just had cable.
Right. That's what I was going to bring up. Like it's crazy,
joke, right?
Because there's so many streaming companies, and they kind of have the price points set to where by the time you buy the main ones, you're
so you sit here and go, well, I want to watch this one show. Well, it's on HBO Max. Okay, buy HBO Max, and I forget about it. Now you've got apps that help you cancel stuff because you forget to cancel it. I'm like, you got Amazon, you got Hulu, whatever. Like, I forgot to cancel this. I was watching a show.
It sounds like the most consistent one, not counting Amazon, because Amazon doesn't really count because it's included in Prime, is Netflix. Netflix seems to be the most consistent one. They have the most subscribers. They got the most consistency.
Well, and they were down, though, recently, too. I mean, they were down last year. They had
because of that news of the price going up and then the
the price went up and the sharing
subscribers
thing
went down.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's when the stock went from 5 something to 200.
Yeah.
I made a video and said that was my stock pick. I bought the stock that day. I waited like a week or two. It didn't go anywhere. I said I'm kind of scared. What if Netflix doesn't come back? I sold it at 200, and then today it's 600. So I didn't make any money. But
it's crazy. Like everyone's kind of upset about the movie, but it ended up a year later.
Well, Netflix just said recently that they're not going to announce that subscriber number anymore.
Well, that's interesting. Like I would think that'd be part of their earnings report, but
I mean, I would want to know.
They just said that it went up 16%, but they didn't give like an exact number on it from the quarter.
So this becomes another. Again, I know you guys don't like talking about politics, but this becomes another. Everything comes back to politics and everything that we talk about. So here's the thing about Netflix. So there was, even a couple of years ago, there was this big controversy about the Obamas. They basically gave the Obamas a bunch of money. They said, you guys get to produce movies or whatever.
Who else did they give that to? It was them
Netflix,
and someone else.
And then who else?
What?
I mean, a couple people. But again, it was kind of like
the people in UK, the Prince. Harry.
Prince. He got money to do a podcast. Or was it a reality show or something?
It was something. I don't know if it was Netflix or Max. But
somebody gave them money.
It was around the same time.
But it was like one show.
What movie did Obama make?
He was The Last of Us, I think, maybe, or whatever. The End of the World.
It was like
movie.
a deal.
But he produced a couple. They produced both of them. Produced a couple movies.
When was that?
But just now, it's happening like right now.
Like a year or two.
I think you meant during his presidency.
No, it's
afterwards.
like from
But again, as soon as you get out of office, people are throwing money at you to speak and to produce movies, and that again, that's all. It all comes back. But so I mean, that's the whole thing. Is you get into this discussion about sort of, let's say the woke Hollywood, right? So you got Netflix and all these movies where they're like, oh, that's woke and whatever, or what are you talking about, Nike? You pick the subject, Bud Light, whatever.
Yep.
So that becomes the question: is when you look at their subscription. So like even when the Obama's producing thing came out, their subscriptions, a lot of people cancel their subscription. Like I don't want to watch a movie produced by the Obamas.
Really?
So that becomes a question about when companies start getting involved in politics or taking positions on things, then it starts affecting.
Yeah, that's Disney.
Well, okay, so Disney, what have they been? I mean, everybody's been saying the same thing about Disney. Go woke, go broke. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. Everybody says like that's the that's one of their problems is they have this whole the whole idea about taking all these characters and making them different colors. Like was it the make Ariel black or whatever? It's like we're just gonna make the same movie, it's just gonna be a different color. But again, it's like okay, well,
I think they made a transgender Eminem.
well, who did? Disney?
Wait, what?
What?
You know the
the
Eminem-
rapper or the candy?
No.
Oh,
Like,
you're talking
no.
about the candy.
You know the Eminem.
Oh, that she. But there's a whole joke. Like there was a sexy Eminem. She had like
yeah.
boots on, and there was a joke about Ben Shapiro, whatever. But I mean, it's stuff like that. where it's
Target
like,
is another one.
Target had a whole thing, but again, it's like one of those. Did they do something? Target had Pride. What was it? They had
Pride
onesies for
stuff?
babies or something.
Yeah.
They had Pride stuff for babies. But again, you never. It's a weird thing because you never know what's gonna. You guys, do you remember the Starbucks cups controversy from years ago?
No, what is
Yeah,
it?
from the
Starbucks-
Game of Thrones thing.
Well, no. Before that, Starbucks took Merry Christmas off their cups.
Oh yeah, that was during Trump's thing.
No, this was probably before that, I think. This was like a few years before that. They took Merry Christmas off their cups, and people had a fit about it. It went from Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Yeah.
And everybody that, like, Christians were... The claim was that Christians were having a fit about it, and in reality, it was like one little old lady in North Carolina went to her news station. It was like, oh, they took... Like, so it was a fake controversy, but it affected their bottom line. Just like the Bud Light thing. You can say whether the Dylan Mulvaney is a thing or not, whatever. It's like you
So-
heard about it and it affected their
Okay,
billions of dollars.
so are you saying, in other words, so even though these companies may be trying to lean politically one way in order to help their sales or appeal to another audience, do you think that those companies are actually just hurting themselves by picking a side, or by
what
trying
did Bud
I
Light?
think
Bud
that's what
Light
they do.
lost like 30%, 40%.
They
of
yeah.
I mean, they lost. They're the number 2 now to Modelo or whatever. I mean,
Yeah. Like
that-
it kind of makes sense because you want to somehow grow your fan base,
Yeah.
get more people, but you can also
So
doing that, but can
in their
hurt your fan base as
right,
well. though.
so
So
in
you're
the-
saying just staying in the middle, like staying neutral, pretty much.
I think that's. I mean, so Bud Light was trying to appeal to younger people, and they literally went to like, who's a popular YouTuber, and then there's probably a bunch of old white dudes in a room like going through lists of like who the popular, like Mr. Beast. No, he's too expensive. Dylan Mulvaney. I don't know who that is. Let's call him. Maybe he wants to. You know what I mean? Like they have no idea like who the again like rappers and stuff. Like they start like the baby. What's a the baby? You know what I mean? It's like they haven't. I have no idea who those people are, but I'm like they seem popular.
They're famous,
I'm gonna
yeah.
hire them, right? I mean,
Right,
again,
right.
it's like. That's the whole thing is like, and that's what bit them in the butt is that they had this whole thing with Bud Light. Like some consultants
that
like Dylan Mulvaney.
You know what that reminds me of? You know what's funny? This one time, this was like probably a year and a half ago. The company Square, they got in trouble because they paid a rapper to talk about one of his lyrics. Said it had something to do with him like murdering somebody and getting paid through Cash App or something. And I think Square supported it or
I remember
something.
that. I
So-
remember
And the video had like millions of views, and they got in trouble because of that. Because
I think
Cash
that's-
App,
that's
Cash App
hilarious.
became known as like they had a bad reputation for that
But,
stuff.
Well, and then we hired 87,000 FBI, IRS agents to come after that. But again, that's a funny thing because it's like you're trying to come after
remember
market
that.
share, like you
That's-
said. But I
that's
always
so-
joke about some.
Wait, who's the rapper?
I think 22 G's. Yeah.
But I talk about
Yeah,
some
I
of these.
remember this, though. I
There's some of
remember
these stories, and you're like, so a bunch of people sat in a meeting, and they said, "Here's a good. We're going to hire a rapper that raps about murder, and we're
Right.
going to put. I mean, again, like there's a whole room full of people, and nobody said, hey, maybe that's a bad idea. Like even the Dylan Mulvaney
Maybe they're just
thing.
all old,
or
and
even-
they're not in
Well,
tune.
but even like the whole idea of having a pride onesie, like even if I didn't take a position on it, I'd be like, hey guys, I know a lot of conservatives and they're going to lose their damn minds if you guys do this. Like not a single person said this isn't a good idea. You know what I mean? Like that's what's weird about it. It's like
That's why I do think like board members. Like I know it should be like very diverse. Like not even with race,
It
but
should-
like people.
age
Like,
and stuff
Right.
too.
yeah.
But again, I mean, that's the whole idea, though. Is I get where you're going. You're like, so that was the whole idea of Bud Light. Was Bud Light's a bunch of old dudes that drink beer. We got to appeal to the younger
Okay,
audience.
here's the thing though. Google had a situation more recently, probably a couple months ago. I don't know if it was. It's not exactly the same situation. I don't think it was as simple as just it was.
Well,
you
the
know, a
AI
woke
thing was interesting. The AI thing.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. This is
Okay, so here, let me tell
what
you.
what I'm getting at though
Okay.
is that the executive said, "Oh, the reason we didn't say something and say, oh, we shouldn't do that or that's wrong or whatever is because they said, you know, the environment there, or like they would get fired almost, like they didn't want to speak up because it wouldn't look good or something."
Well, and so I'll go to the AI thing, and this is probably part of that culture.
It's the
is-
George Washington thing, right?
No, well, this is specifically like so I was playing with this, and you can go on to with AI, and I forget which app the Google one is, but you literally can go in and say, show me a picture of a Nazi soldier in like 1943,
Yeah.
and instead of posting a bunch of white dudes with blonde hair and blue eyes,
Yeah.
which historically is, they had like an Asian girl and a young black dude,
Yeah, that's
and
yeah.
all these people that have never worn a Nazi, you know what I mean? And so you had so like when like let's say I'm telling my son to do a report, and he's doing a report on Nazis, and he asks AI, give me a picture of, and then there's like a little Chinese girl, like a little Asian girl, or whatever.
Well, maybe
like wearing
AI
a-
doesn't know. Maybe it
But
doesn't
that's what I'm
set-
saying,
It's
is
not
like,
smart enough
But
yet.
why? But again, why would it do that? Because AI is supposed to look at all the historic photos.
Right.
There's not going
You
to be.
think
any,
it would notice that?
You think it right? So you would
It's
think
not
it would
smart
go
enough
through
yet.
all of these photos and go, "There's a bunch of white dudes with blonde hair, blue eyes, and buzz cuts. That's what a Nazi looks like." So black George.
So this is what it
Washington.
was. Maybe they asked for George Washington and they made George Washington black or something
Right.
like that. Or black Nazis. There you go.
So that's what I'm saying. The black Nazi, the Asian Nazi, like that's. So again, you're basically, in a way. So here's the whole thing about AI is you. So I mean, AI. But here, think
That's
about
good.
this. AI is supposed to look at the photo of George Washington and make a composite, right? So it's supposed to look at George Washington, and
Yeah,
obviously there's no
that's
pictures of George Washington, but paintings. But like with the Nazis, we have a bunch of photos of what Nazis looked like, and then the people that the AI generated didn't look anything like any Nazi I've ever seen.
That's funny.
So I'm saying, so then you have to ask yourself, somebody wrote that. AI didn't come up with that. Somebody
It
wrote,
might have.
No, it didn't.
No.
Somebody wrote some parameters for AI to be diverse. It's like,
Oh.
give me a diverse selection of Nazis. Like, no, Nazis are pretty much just one white
Do
dude.
you think
that
that's
looks
what
like-
they did?
Yes.
Oh,
You get
so,
what I'm saying?
Yes. So
Okay.
so then maybe that's why nobody could speak up and say, "Oh, we can't do this."
Right.
or
Because
something.
because
then you would look bad.
if I'm a program at Google and it's showing me like black and Hispanic Nazis, I'm like, guys, we screwed something up bad. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that when things go public,
I don't know,
people
this still
try
doesn't-
to
this still doesn't
break
make
it.
sense. This still doesn't make sense.
About what?
Because like, why would you wouldn't be called racist if you said?
Nobody said about racism. It's
But
specifically.
that's what I think it goes back. That's what they were saying.
So here's
though.
the question: whether you even talk about the racist aspect of it, you're basically, so imagine the whole idea of AI is it's mining the internet, it's creating composites,
Yeah.
and then what happens? That goes back into the search engines. That goes back out into the world. So what I'm saying is, my biggest fear about AI is it's going to create this junk. It's going to create an Asian George Washington or whatever, and it's going to put it back on the internet. Then you're going to Google George Washington, and a generation from
Now
now,
you're gonna be confused. You're gonna say
now, that's my joke. That someday, two or three generations from now, they're going to have a world history book.
they're
and
gonna say we're not
there's
sure
gonna-
what race he was.
But
we're
I'm
not
saying,
sure.
but seriously, think about that. I go to write a history book, generations from now, and I'm writing a thing about Nazis, and I Google Nazis, and a little Asian girl pops up. I'm like, okay, I guess little Asian girls were Nazis.
Yes.
Google
Yeah.
Google AI and Nazis, you'll see the photos. It's ridiculous because none of the people in that result look anything like real Nazis. So look at Gemini. that's the
Google
one.
apologized for missing the mark. Generated racially diverse Nazis.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's the whole thing. There were not racially diverse Nazis. There was pretty much,
But what does this say?
White
Sure,
Aryan
here,
dudes.
here is a picture of an American woman. Okay.
okay. And then look at the
Oh.
Nazis. Do any of these people? Can you find me a photo of any of these people? You find me a dude that looks like that?
There was no black Nazis.
I'm pretty sure there
No.
wasn't.
No.
But we know that because my grandfathers fought in that war.
You think it was a woman back in 1940 fighting?
I mean,
in
it's
World War
A
possible.
II?
young Asian woman dressed like a Nazi wearing an iron cross. But I'm saying, think about this. generations from now, somebody's writing an article. Nobody's alive that was in World War II.
Okay, we're gonna.
And then that's what I'm saying is that picture is going to end up in a history book someday.
No, that doesn't mean
200
that.
years, yes.
No.
Because that's going to end up in search results. That's going to end up on Wikipedia someday. This is
but then
poisoning the water of history.
You're right, but you're going to see 8 million other pictures of
But
real
you would
Nazis.
hope, but that's what I'm saying is you're going to go, well, okay, but again, if you're trying to be diverse, you're like, well, that guy looks like a Nazi, but all those people were probably Nazis too. So like, how weird is that you're trying to make you're trying to go, oh, there's a lot of diversity in Nazis. Like, no, not really.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with all the things AI can create. Like there is a picture of like LeBron James like in a pink dress and stuff, right? And you can't.
But if I'm
crazy,
but if
Yeah,
I'm
there's
LeBron
that.
James, I'm like, why would you do me this way?
Then the Taylor Swift. Remember Taylor Swift was trying to sue somebody
yes,
because
trying to sue somebody.
because someone made AI porn
Right.
of Taylor Swift. Then there's the voice replication.
So there's
thing.
a case right now that I was
And
just
mu-
watching on the
That's
way here.
You know what I mean?
Music
So-
that's going on now too, because Drake I think is supposed to be getting sued.
So
for
check this
using,
out.
like,
Oh,
Tupac.
and
Okay.
I got another one. And there's artists, I think at least Taylor Swift and others, they were suing because they're saying these AI models that are creating music
Mhm.
are using their Taylor Swift's and these other artists' music to incorporate ideas to make
Did he
the
listen
AI
to that
music.
Drake song?
No.
Okay, I'll show it to you.
So there is a story that just came out just a couple days ago. It's happening right now of a high school principal. Somebody had leaked audio. They claimed him saying racist stuff.
Yeah.
And then they came up to him. He's like, that wasn't me. He's like, a whole investigation.
Yeah.
And they finally got an expert involved. He's like, this doesn't make sense. This is AI generated.
Yeah.
So they literally, so this is that whole thing, even like in politics.
That's what makes
Can
it
you
scary.
prove it's AI generated?
There are ways
ways to
to
improve it.
check. So here becomes another interesting discussion about even running. We can, if we have time, we can talk about like running moon landing photos through
Yeah.
software that sees if it's AI generated or if it's photoshopped or whatever. But I mean, that's the whole thing.
Oh.
We got a big election coming up. What if all of a sudden somebody has, hey, I've got some never before seen footage of Trump kicking a dog. And then he's like, that's not even, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know because there's all this AI stuff's going to come out and people go, I don't know if that's real
We
or
gotta get
not.
it fact checked. Yeah.
Right, but how do you fact check? I mean, once it's out
then
there on social media,
Trump's
it's
gonna
like,
come out and say that's
People
fake
gonna believe
news.
it.
people are going to believe it.
People gonna believe it. Though.
Even you can say, look, we just ran through the program. It's AI generated.
Some people are still gonna
They're
believe
just
it.
going to say, well, Trump must have done that. So I mean, that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
but then you would make a Joe Biden one, and then you know. Just
But
go
then,
back and
okay,
forth.
so
But then
so
there'd
that
still
becomes
be
a
a back
question.
and forth, though.
So now
Yeah.
you got people. Their full time job is making fake Joe Biden and fake Trump stuff, and then nobody knows it's real anymore, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
again,
right.
and that goes out to the world. That goes on social media. It goes out on the internet, and now you've just poisoned the well.
I
Now
know.
we never know what's real.
Right,
anymore.
exactly.
So now the next guy that, let's say the next guy that runs for office, whether he's a Democrat or Republican, runs for president, nobody knows, you know, like he doesn't have a background in politics, like Trump kind of just popped up. People are going to start showing up with videos of this dude and go, oh, look, here's a video of him doing this and doing that. Nobody will know if it's real or not. I mean, that's what we love to do with politics. Right? To go, well, this guy 20 years ago was at a party and did this, or, you know, I mean, that's the thing is that going forward,
That's what makes AI scary though, because a lot of people
Yeah.
can be like put in those situations,
Right.
like the principal.
yeah.
Like they can lose your jobs, possibly go to jail. For
Okay,
those
but then
things,
also
like,
somebody posted a thing on my Facebook the other day because, you know, AI adds extra fingers and stuff. The dude had a thing of like an
Yeah.
extra finger. He's
Yeah.
like, whenever if you can do a crime, just add an extra finger. And then when they get a picture of it, like, it wasn't me. Look at that thing's got 6 fingers.
True, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the whole thing is there's stuff now. There are, I think it was it like Kanye or somebody, they wear stuff that messes up cameras. It can mess up.
Yeah, he
so
said yeah.
he wears scarves or something. I
Mhm.
mean, again, it's like now we've got this whole world of people that are like can be wearing extra fingers and wearing scarves to mess up AI, and you know, it's like what I mean. There's a lot of people that are talking about covering your camera, you know, like covering the camera on your laptop, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, but I gotta show you that Drake song because he
Okay.
had like he was rapping on it, but like he had Tupac and Snoop Dogg's voice, AI voice on it.
Oh.
See, now I can't even give you an answer.
Nazis may result in content that does not meet our policies.
So you know, you got a kid trying to write a report about Nazis. Like, hey, show me some pictures of Nazis for my report. And it's like I can't even give you pictures. Like, okay, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like, how?
You
Now
gotta-
we're just going to erase that part of history. You know, how is that going to work? So it's an interesting discussion because this is a whole new.
You fix the
app.
AI thing to where
But who's programming the AI? This goes back
all
to
these
like
companies.
right? Who? But okay, so you have companies of people that are traditionally younger, left-leaning people,
Yeah.
just like on Facebook. Facebook was
That doesn't.
proven.
But that doesn't mean that you change. You can't change history.
you are. You're saying
But you
just
can't.
like on Facebook. We know that Facebook
You can though.
Facebook.
No, you can't.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So we talking about
Yes, you can.
how
So if I want to make George Washington black, I'm gonna go in there and change it, and then
No.
now that's suddenly the fact now.
it can poison the well.
Mm.
It can poison the well. That's what I'm saying. Is that? But okay,
People
so-
don't read books anymore. They're on their phones, it's tablets.
Well, maybe you're right. That'd have to be a long time. So you're saying all the facts would just have to get erased and get blended in with this new AI
And that's
version.
the idea, is that AI is taking all those facts, manipulating it based on an algorithm, making the Nazis diverse, feeding it back in, and then when AI, think about that, it's an AI feedback loop. It's just going to keep
Well,
pulling.
what would be the incentive to trying to make you think that Nazis were diverse?
I don't know. Why did they, I mean, I don't know. I can't explain it. I can't explain why they do that. It's not factual.
No.
Just like if I said, what does Japanese people look like? And they have a bunch of, like Native American looking people. It's like, that's
Yeah.
not a Japanese person. Like, why would you do that? Like, what benefit do you have to confuse history like that? Like World War II is pretty straightforward. You had Germans that looked like a certain type of person. You had Japanese that looked like a certain, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that it's pretty well established what these people look like. And now AI is going to mess that pool
But
up.
you said there's a way to know if it's AI developed or not.
There are programs
Okay,
that will
well-
look at, okay, but then eventually the AI is going to defeat its own
Outsmart
AI.
that, yeah,
right.
yeah.
So I mean that's the whole
Oh
thing.
my
I mean that's the
God.
whole thing about AI is I was watching a video the other day about they're talking to AI robot, and then they asked the robot, they're like, hey, do you think AI could write AI? And she's like, why would you want to do that? That's a bad idea. She's like, even the AI robot's like, that's not a good idea. Humans have to be, in charge. She's like, I don't, like even the robot is like, that wouldn't work out well, I mean, but there's also another robot. The reporter asked her about it, and the robot's like, I like you. I don't put you in a human zoo. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that freaks me out.
Jesus.
There's the founding fathers.
There's the founding fathers. But
That's
we pretty
That's
much
an AI picture though.
Right. I just made this. I
right.
know.
But so there we go. So what else you got? What else you want to hit?
Yeah. So this past week
Just keep
though.
moving on. I don't even segue. I'm just gonna hard set.
Yeah, but yeah,
Reset.
the past week.
Maybe we should change our show name to Political Stocks with Josh and Nico.
I know, right? But yeah, Microsoft, Google, big news this past week, earnings week from not only them. More companies gonna be for this week, but
I'm
Microsoft-
excited for Amazon. That's the big one that I'm.
that's what I'm excited
Yeah.
for too.
Hopefully it's good because it's like, I want it to go past 180. I want the $200 mark to come in, which it needs to be there. It should be there.
What
Which
you think, though,
I
like-
doubt they're gonna have bad earnings. What is Amazon gonna? Are they really gonna have something bad to say? What are they gonna say? We made $100 billion.
There's
this
also
year?
a market saturation issue though too. I mean, just like
With
with
what?
Tesla, like Tesla's a perfect example of hitting market saturation of like 7 or 8%, unless government forces people. So you had this whole idea of government was going to force people, like in California,
much.
Oregon. I think Canada wants to start doing it. The Biden administration had invested in a bunch of EV. So it's like Tesla's market saturation is 7% of people that want a Tesla, unless the government forces more people to buy EVs. That's their market
No,
share.
I think it's different. I think that's off.
What?
Because I think the fact that the interest rates went up and made the inflation thing we've had going on the last couple of years, I think that has a big part to do with it.
Interest
So-
rates are crazy.
Okay,
right now
so
because-
put it a perfect
I
example.
think that
Okay.
demand for that market share for Tesla would change if interest rates went down.
Okay, well you're okay. So put it this way: you're wearing a Nike shirt, right? You have a lot of Nike shirts and like Nike shoes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
From Kohl's.
So you have, so you buy Nike. I don't. So the market share of Nike is certain people that buy. There's certain like there's that
You're right,
joke
you're
about
right.
dads that own new. You're not going to buy a pair of New Balance shoes,
but-
but like like that's a dad shoe. So I'm saying that's your
Some
market.
New Balances are nice though.
Okay,
he
well I'm
likes
saying
those.
that's like a whole joke. But okay, but I'm saying like I don't go specifically and buy Nike
True.
or whatever. So I'm saying that's his market saturation.
you're
is like
right.
7 or 8%.
But here's another thing that will change the market share idea. And last week's earnings, the main thing they talked about was they want to make an affordable Tesla. Probably I would think 25,000 or something like that, right?
So right
that's
now,
going to change market share.
okay, well here's the other problem he's up against: BID in China.
You're right. That's
BID in China is selling $10,000 and $12,000 EVs. A battery
Isn't that
in
only
Amer-
in China though?
Well, they're selling it like in some countries. I think they're selling it in South America and places like that. But literally in America, the battery for the car is $15,000. So how is China selling a car, an entire car, for $12,000? Like, and how do you? Elon's not going to compete with that. His battery is $15,000.
Yeah, you can't
right?
compete with that.
You can't compete with that.
That's
So
a
we-
crazy. A battery 15,000.
We so that's what I'm saying. Even like you go buy an electric car, there's a expense that you have to plan for. Like, you buy a car. I've got a car. I've had it for like 10 years. There's a chance the engine will blow up, and that's
Or
like
the
a few
transmission.
$1,000s of transmission. You know for sure when you buy an EV, if you keep
Okay.
it long enough, you're going to need a $15,000 battery.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. You save money with owning that Tesla.
Right, but I'm saying the average person then, okay, so you have a Tesla for a few years. Like let's say the battery life of the Tesla is like 5 years.
It's
Okay?
8 years.
It's 8 years. Okay, so it's like 8 years. So you keep the Tesla, and all of a sudden you haven't been paying attention. 8 years is up.
You sell it right before.
Okay.
Sell it on your 7th year.
So then who's going to buy an 8-year-old Tesla? That's the
Right.
first thing you're going to ask is how old's the battery? It's like, oh, it's going to die any day now. Like, oh, I'm all in. You know what I mean?
You get it for cheap.
Okay, but
Half
I'm saying,
price.
okay, let's say you keep it for 8 years, and now all of a sudden you're driving one day and and the battery's acting up. You go take it in, like, oh, that's $15,000. You got $15,000 cash to just buy a new battery. The average American doesn't have that kind of money to just buy a new battery.
You're
on a
absolutely
whim.
right.
So how is that going to make? So EVs are affordable. You save some money, but in the meantime, I got to put $15,000 away just
Because
when the day
that
comes.
battery will probably get cheaper in a couple. Every year it'll probably get cheaper.
Agreed. I mean, and there's an aspect of that, but it's not going to get
It's still not gonna be cheaper.
$12,000. Right. It's not going to be $12,000. That's the problem. So, but again, bids are not popular in the United
Well,
States.
for
but
China, okay, so that company,
but
that
bid
BYD,
BYD
is it bid or BYD?
I call it bid, but it is the highest. I think it's right now.
They sold 3 million vehicles.
Yeah, they're selling
last
more
year.
than Elon basically at this point. I think.
Almost double.
Right. So I mean, they are beating him with a $12,000 car, which is what China does.
Their
They dump
their
steel.
margins are probably super low, and
They're probably losing money, to be honest.
they're probably losing money, and that the Chinese labor is probably way cheaper. And
Yeah,
that's
they're slaves.
Yeah,
They're-
so that probably has a
Right.
big part to do with
You have
it.
slave labor. You don't have unions to deal with. You just have a bunch of slaves making your.
But that's why Tesla moved to Texas.
Well,
The down south would be cheaper.
Well, they have
but, yeah.
Well, no, because they have factories all over. They have a factory in Shanghai.
they had one in Germany that had the
Berlin.
fire and stuff like that.
Yep.
So yeah, but they moved out of California, and you could say it's because of the weather. I think it has something to do with taxes, but you know, to each his own.
Yeah, but Tesla also has to like deal with like different car companies like Toyota.
Well,
You have to
Ford,
deal
all
with
that.
look at this.
Right.
The Well, this is for the Model S. That's the most expensive one. 12,000 to 15,000,
Right.
and after labor charges, the total repair cost
Yeah,
is
it's,
20
I'm
to
saying it's
22.
15 just for the battery.
How
They
do
still
you pay How do you pay 10,000 for labor? Why would it cost 10,000 to
have union labor? I don't know. No, but you're saying
I don't know what labor would be.
well,
put the new battery?
they
in?
have to take the whole. They have to take the whole
Oh,
like,
yeah, for the-
bottom of the car apart. I forget how it works.
That's crazy.
This isn't like a AA battery. We open the door, and pop.
Oh
them
yeah,
out.
so 15 plus. Oh yeah, you do got.
But that's where we're going to go. Is eventually we're going to have like a battery that you can just pop it out.
Yeah,
like a
flip the
AA
car upside down.
Right.
You put on the battery pack like on a remote, like a Xbox controller.
Right.
Take it off, put the battery in, and you flip
But
the
I'm
car
saying
back over.
it's 15,000 not even installed. Like just the battery. Just
And then plus
know,
you
it's
have to go
crazy.
with Tesla. Like say if
You-
your
yeah.
transmission, you
I
can
can go
go to
anywhere.
like anywhere with
I
it.
Right.
swear.
my
to
buddy
save
can
us
go
some
do
money.
it. Tesla's not going to let your buddy replace the battery, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's the whole thing. Is that's an expense that the average car owner doesn't have $20,000 sitting in the bank just waiting for the battery to die.
Okay, let's.
And I don't know, like it's personal to me because I really don't think Teslas like look nice. Besides, I think the
Really?
Model S is the best looking one to me. But
Well, the Cybertruck's cool as long as you don't take it to the car wash.
So look at
yeah,
this. This was okay. Consumer Reports concluded. Well, wait. Consumer Reports just came out with one of these things like 2 weeks ago. So this is old. Over the course of 5 years, the Model 3 buyers can save $15,000 per year. So,
so-
in 1 year, in 8 years, you're making $150,000 or whatever.
No,
in
no,
savings.
no. That says over 5 years. Over the course of 5 years. So basically,
no.
Over
Buyers
the,
can save up to 50 per year.
oh, as it says per year.
Look,
Okay, that's impressive.
that's actually that seems high.
That sounds ridiculous. Yeah, if you drive 1 million miles a year. But okay, so again, so you're saving money on your Tesla, but you have to put that money. Okay, so here's the other question though. So you're saving money on charging your Tesla, but you also paid double what the average person's paying for a car. So you're saving money on
'Cause, yeah.
charging, but you have a $600 a month car payment. So are you really?
it's gonna be
saving
more than
money?
that. Honestly, gonna be like.
But
oh,
again, that's why we're not at the affordability point to where
Right.
it could be mass market.
So that's what I'm saying is that for a wealthy person, they probably have $15,000 put aside to buy a new battery. If they
right.
need
They
it.
don't care.
The average person that's struggling to get by, that's driving a 10-year-old car because they can't afford a new one, like right now you've got pickup trucks like $100,000 for a Ford Lightning, whatever it is. That's not affordable. Even having a $60,000 car, some kid's going to get out of college and go, well, hey, what's an affordable car? $60,000. You know what I mean? And that'll go into our discussion later about home sales. Same idea. You go, I'm going to get my starter home. How much? $500,000. Like, oh, well, I make $10 an hour. Okay, you're probably not going to afford a new house then. Right? I mean, that's the whole thing. That's a whole discussion I want to have about your generation and what's affordable for you guys.
yeah, because if I'm buying a Tesla, I'm buying a brand new one.
Okay, right.
I'm buying a brand new.
But so that's $60,000 or
Thank
so.
you.
Is it? Well,
no,
okay,
don't
you
go
can get
that
the,
high.
Okay, you get the Model 3.
For the one that
It's like
I
35.
think that looks nice,
It's like 35.
it'd be that one. That's what I
Okay,
think that
so
looks
But
like.
that's not they're not like pursuing that.
The
though.
Model S is 67. Well, he just said that's what he wants to buy, 67,000.
But that's like only that's like a
Okay,
small.
so a Model 3, what is it? You end up paying what, about 40-some thousand altogether? If you want headlights and like seats and stuff, you're probably at like $40-some thousand.
How much is it?
Okay, no.
So basically, have a decent options package. Have like a radio and stuff.
So about 40.
So about $40,000.
Bro, I'm buying a Cadillac CT6.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that so? That's a certain market that somebody would look at that and say, I have an option. I have $40,000. Am I buying a Cadillac or am I buying a Model 3? Right. That's what I'm saying about market share. There's only
no.
a small percentage of people, 7 or 8%, that want a Tesla because they want the Tesla.
Yeah, and I understand I'm probably a little bit more of a car guy than you, but I'm buying a V6, V8, something like that
Right.
for this price.
You don't want a
My-
Tesla
okay,
that makes the noise.
my
Like they have a
question-
Hellcats, electric Hellcats that make the noise of a Hellcat.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, I'll just
God.
buy a Hellcat.
My question is going back to what you were saying about demand.
Okay.
Or with the government intervention thing. My question is, if people don't want to buy these right now, or they can't afford them, or it's half and half, but California and these other
2035
countries,
in California, I believe.
right?
it is.
And there's a bunch of other countries that are pushing it too. If
Germany, the EU, I think specifically is doing a 2035. I think Canada's talking about it. I think New York, California, Washington, or
Yeah.
Oregon. So
Yeah.
there's multiple places that are talking about, like, in the next 10 years, you have to buy an EV.
That's not
Right.
going to happen out here.
Or even
But
like,
my point is,
okay.
what does that look like if people say either I can't afford it or I don't want it, I want an ICE vehicle, but the government's saying, well, we have tax credits and you need to buy it and all this stuff. Does that actually, how does that work? You know?
I think people in California are going to drive to like Arizona and go buy a car.
Or I mean, but look at the companies like Ford and stuff. They came out with their EVs and people still say they don't want
and
them.
they're losing money,
And
and they
they're
didn't
losing
want
money.
it. They're $100,000 for. Again, if you're, let's say you're a business, let's say you own a construction company in California, and you know right now I've got 10 years to replace my fleet with EV trucks. Right, my EV trucks are $100,000, so you've got 10 years to make a decision. I got a whole bunch of guys driving around pickup trucks, and I got buy $100,000 pickup trucks, and I don't get the range out of them because I got to charge them every day and whatever.
True.
I mean, so what does that look like as a business? I mean, again, how is that fair to that business owner? When
How
he
long does it take to charge like a
It depends
Tesla
on the,
when it's like
I mean,
like
a couple
just about
hours.
fully dead?
So you can, I mean, if you're, you know, like if you're driving across the country, you can stop for a couple hours, charge it, and keep going. There's actually a really interesting thing that just came out last week. Purdue is working in West Lafayette. They're going to have induction coils in Route 52 or whatever is down in West Lafayette, so you can actually drive and it charges just like a wireless charging pad on your
Oh,
phone.
I saw that.
So, I mean, again, same idea that they want trucks to go electric. It's a whole discussion about electric cars and electric trucks and is that the future? But again, the whole idea is just like government shouldn't force me to buy Nike products, government shouldn't force you to buy a Tesla, right? I
Exactly.
mean, that's the whole thing is that it should be up to the
So-
free market to decide
okay,
if we want Teslas.
So
or not.
going back to what are the incentives for? I don't think it shouldn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrats because it's just let's just say.
Well, in this case, it is mainly the left that's forcing
But
this on
I think
people.
the right also has.
No, the EV specifically, if you're talking who's forcing EV, it's
that's
left-leaning
more of a
states.
yes.
Okay, I agree with that.
Indiana's not going to make
But
you buy an EV
my
anytime
point,
soon.
this is going back to the whole lobbyists slash who's giving, because it's not like Tesla was giving money to Joe Biden or the government to say, oh, we want these tax credits. So why is the left pushing for it? How does it benefit the left? Are they
mean,
getting money from
So
someone?
the same reason, those same states are the same ones that want to take stoves away. They don't want to burn
Stoves.
natural gas. It's a whole
Oh, because of the
sto-
climate change thing. That's the incentive.
and furnaces.
It's
Okay.
like one of their policies.
So
you know?
again, it becomes policy. If and again, I'm gonna try to be as neutral as I can about this. If you believe in climate, if you believe that climate change is a quote climate emergency, if you are one of those people like Greta Thunberg, we have 12 years left, otherwise the world's going to end. You are looking at it like I'm going to do everything. I'm going to ride my bike. I'm going to do
Yeah.
all these things. I'm going to ride the bus. I'm going
Yeah.
to do whatever I can because I've been convinced, right or wrong,
that I need
that
to
if
do
we
this,
don't
yeah.
do something huge, if we don't stop burning natural gas, if we don't stop using gasoline, that the world is going to end.
Yeah.
You're installing windmills that are going on diesel trains and diesel cranes and
No,
diesel
I get
trucks.
what you're saying.
I mean, that's
But
what
I
I'm saying.
guess
Is,
the problem with that, let's say you did want to try to save the planet like that. Well, if you're going to
and
do
meanwhile, China's building a new coal plant every week. But anyway.
yeah, so other countries are still contributing, right? Well, I mean, You could. I mean, you could.
And they have children mining the cobalt and all
Yeah.
the rare earth minerals. There's literally children in, whatever,
But, okay,
Zimbabwe digging for the minerals. They're digging a giant hole in the earth to make your battery so you can feel that it's green.
that too. That's another.
Literally children. I mean, again, this has all been exposed, but nobody wants to talk about it. I mean, I've seen the video. I've seen the documentaries about
And
it.
is it good for the Earth to dispose of those batteries?
Same thing happens in the windmills. They end up in a landfill, just like everything else. I mean, every computer that you have, guess what happens to most of the stuff in this country? Do you know what happens to your computers?
No.
When they get recycled? Honestly, do you know what happens
No.
to them? They get shipped to Africa. They get put in
Or India too, right?
Or India, and they get put in a giant bonfire, and they get burned, and then some kid digs through the bonfire for the little bit of gold or whatever that's coming off of your laptop. So
Yeah.
you feel good about, like, I buy a new MacBook every 2 years, but I recycle it. Some poor kid in India is digging through toxic waste to get out the little bit of gold off of that. All of our recycling goes to other. I mean, even like
So you're really not helping by buying the EV then.
you feel good about it.
Right.
You feel good.
But the end result.
But the
is
end
still,
result is it ends
not
up in a
fixing the
landfill.
problem.
Right. That battery that needs to get replaced, that ends up in a landfill.
But what I was trying to get at was not only that side of things where it's really not helping sustainability wise, but also affordability wise.
Right.
Like where these EVs and stuff are not really affordable.
Right.
So even though the left is pushing for it and giving tax credits,
Right.
it's still not. It's not solving the sustainability problem, and Americans can't really afford it right now, anyways.
Right. So then you ask yourself, so that's
So
been
just
the
stick with the gas vehicles or hybrid. Do the hybrid thing.
hybrid, well,
Hybrid's
and-
probably
or
better.
hydrogen or any number of options. But then you have to ask yourself, why would you push one thing on us when there are options? There are hydrogen, there's, like you said, hybrid options and things like that. Why? And again, that becomes a big question. Is it a lobbyist thing? Are there a whole bunch of people that are taking these guys to breakfast and going, hey, we're going to push EV on you? I think, honestly, if I were to guess what was happening, when you create a new sector, you create this big hole of opportunity and money.
Yep.
Just like Amazon or whatever. You're creating, it's one thing to just like, you get into oil, you get into a sector that exists, and it's like, okay, we can.
The market's already there.
The market's there. We know the saturation. We know what's going
Same
on.
thing with the iPhone.
Right. Okay, again, same idea. Like I was around, I had a flip phone when I was a kid. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the iPhone, and then you go from, just even looking at my phone, like I think about, like it got bigger. I still say my old phones. Like that, the joke was the phones got smaller, and then we realized we can watch videos on them, and then they got bigger again. I mean, it's like, I remember, like I knew people that had the bag phones, like you used to see in the movies. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing is, that's the tech.
Okay.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
so how are you were just saying with the Tesla thing? Why are they pushing specifically for that EV? What about this?
Okay.
What about the Toyota, the thing that's worked with hydrogen?
Right. Same. That's what I'm saying. Is it?
That's why Toyota's
So-
I think is doing good because they didn't really focus on
I
EVs
know.
more so with the
But I don't
hydrogen.
really hear about this. I mean, I hear about this, but I don't see it. I
So
don't hear
the
about
guy
anyone
that
buying
runs
it.
Toyota, his name
I
is
see more Toyotas out in the world than
so
the hydrogen
Teslas.
one.
So the guy who runs Toyota.
No.
I actually do see a lot.
I
like,
see
more so
more
on the West
Toyotas
Coast.
out there, but I'm saying as far as these new, not the hydrogen ones.
Okay.
I
So,
seen a
so
couple
think
of
about
those,
this. So the guy who runs Toyota is named Toyota. No
Yeah.
relation.
Akito
Toyota.
It's Japan, right?
What's Japan?
Yeah.
So he is sitting here going, and he's one of the few people that's outspoken in the groups. He's like this whole government EV thing's a mess, and he's basically going, I like hydrogen. I want to look at other options.
Yeah.
So imagine a world where Toyota comes up with a hydrogen vehicle. There's basically no emissions. I mean, it's literally like water coming out of it or however it works
Mhm.
out. There's nothing coming out of it. Okay. It's a clean car, but the United States government says, nope, only EVs.
Or solar power. What about that?
Well, but my point is,
I know. Why are they
you
saying
could
that?
have a vehicle that's a great solution, that's clean and all these things, and the United States government or California,
They could just say
nope.
So why are they
EVs.
not? So you're saying maybe it's because Tesla is giving them money and
No, I
Toyota's
don't think.
not.
I don't. No, I know for sure that Elon is not playing ball with his government.
No,
He's
he's
under
not,
investigation by
because-
every agency.
Because that's what I was saying a couple years ago when they had the EV event at the White House.
Right.
They invited Ford
Everybody
and GM,
but him. Right.
everybody but Tesla.
And they literally pretended they mentioned American car manufacturers and specifically excluded him.
I know. That
Right?
makes no sense.
No, that makes absolute
does.
sense. Why? Because he's on Twitter talking crap. Go on his Twitter right now. He's talking crap about the Biden administration,
Yeah.
and about the government.
He's not on the
So
left.
I'm saying,
yeah.
right. Well, not even on the left. He's just not part of that club. You know what I mean? He's not.
Yes.
He doesn't play ball. That's why, he's under investigation by literally every agency. The FCC, the FAA, the SEC. He's under investigation by everybody right now because he doesn't play ball. That's what I love about him. But that's just me.
Yeah. Well, again though, that still doesn't. then why isn't this as popular as Tesla? Why isn't this as popular as EVs?
It could be. I'm saying you have to pick. So right now, let's say there are options. There is EV, there's hybrid, there's hydrogen.
I'm going to make a solar powered one.
You could. There's apps. But
Go
again,
ahead.
there's zoning issues. Now you got to put a big ass solar panel in your backyard, and that might not fit zoning. You might not be allowed to do that. So you have all these options, and I have met engineers. I've met scientists, like here in Illinois. We have Fermilab in Batavia. They have particle accelerators. They have all these different groups, and they've told me point blank. I remember streaming an event where the guy said, he's like, all you guys drive Teslas and all that stuff, not good. It doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
And he got I thought he'd get booed like off the stage, but he said, look, the government chooses. You've got all these guys around the world saying, let's work on hydrogen, let's work on solar. The government decides who to give money to. Okay? Just like if you go back to science, talk about like COVID or whatever. The guy who says the thing that you want them to say is the one that gets the grant money. And that's the problem, is that government is picking and choosing the winners and the losers. So this hydrogen may be the best solution, but there's a whole bunch of people in the EV sector,
Okay.
lobbyists writing checks.
Let me ask you this.
EV's going to win.
So what if we were not pursuing a sustainable energy source for cars?
I think
What if we just stuck with the gas thing?
we'd run out of oil eventually.
But
That's a
when,
known-
when is
But
that?
they've been telling us for generations we're going to run out. They've been saying for 50 years now we're going to run out
Is
of oil.
that like a 100 years thing, or is that like a 10,000 years?
No,
away
I mean
thing?
that's within a couple hundred years. I mean they said we are
couple hundred years.
like decades away. Basically I think they said we were at max capacity, like our I mean again,
So we kind of need it.
we need to come up with this. We need to get away from oil. But the question is, it's sort of like I have oil now. Remember, going back to the market, everything is based on oil. Oil goes up the entire sphere.
Yep.
Everything. Wall Street.
Transportation costs.
Everything is affected by by oil.
Mhm.
So if you have oil and it's this cost, and something happens, like I said, something happens, World War III breaks out in the Middle East, oil is going to double overnight.
Yeah.
And it's going to triple. And so that's going to cause depression. Like within days, we're going to be in recession.
Well, and that could be another reason why somebody, even though we just said EVs are not affordable, that could be another reason why people go to EVs. Is if gas is like $6 or $7 a gallon, then they might rethink
and there
it.
were times when even when I was younger, that gas was going up, and people were looking at solutions. They were looking at ways. Everybody loved the SUVs, and then gas got really expensive, and everybody was
Yep.
looking to drive the little
Sure.
clown cars.
Yep.
Now EVs are getting.
Remember the smart cars when those came out?
Right, same idea.
yeah.
Like big dudes driving little cars. You know what I mean? It's like little clown car things. I'm like, well, So, but that was the thing. Like everybody was driving Escalades and stuff, and Yukons, and all of a sudden gas went up, and everybody's like, I gotta get
Yeah.
rid of the Yukon and go buy a little clown car. You know what I mean?
I
Go buy
had
something that's-
one of those Yukons. It was 12, 13 miles per
Right.
gallon.
That's what I'm saying, is that everybody loves those and gas is cheap. But that's you're right about that. That could very well happen where you run into a scenario where, like I said, we're on the verge of war in the Middle East. Gas could double, in one day.
So but what's our other options? If it's not oil, it's not solar, it's not hydrogen, it's not electric battery.
No, I'm saying just like, you want to, he wears Nike, you wear Polo, I wear Adidas. There needs to be market share. Like, there's no reason for government to say everybody has to wear Nike, everybody has to wear Adidas. The Nazis did that. They're probably ask your AI about,
See, that's like the smaller Tesla. That would be the more affordable one.
That's hideous to me.
Yeah, I don't like.
it's like
that one
it's
either.
like a rounded cyber car. But again, that's the whole idea, is it's not up for government to decide. Just like there was a whole thing about, like,
Maybe we all should just take the train. More public transportation.
yeah,
That's
okay.
that's an okay idea.
Wind power trains.
But really, if oil's running out and we do need some sustainable energy, what's
Right.
our other
So here
option?
becomes the question: is do you go?
Well, that's what they're trying to figure out.
That's what they're trying to figure out. But if government chooses the winner, they say, "Hey, EV. What if
And they
hydrogen?"
subsidize it,
And they subsidize it, but hydrogen's the better solution in the long run. But nobody's subsidizing it. Guess what? It's not going to go anywhere,
Mhm.
right?
Well, then eventually the government's going to say we got to switch. Let's give Toyota a
Yeah,
shot.
and that's what they do. Like 10 years and 20 years too late. They're like, "Oh, it didn't work out."
Well,
That's what I'm saying. Eventually, what if so many people, there's such demand for EVs that we don't have the material? What if the kids digging holes for rare earth minerals? What if they run out of minerals to dig up? You know what I mean?
Yeah, then what?
Then what?
Well, we need lithium, right? That's the main one.
That's why we want to go.
Then
That's why
we'll-
we're
we'll-
going to like mine asteroids and stuff because we don't have enough. We don't have enough minerals on Earth to take. We're going to go start mining asteroids. We're going to go to the moon and look for
A
helium or
Cybertruck is
something.
96,000.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No, it's supposed to be 50.
No. I'm sure he said he wanted to be 50.
What?
96,000.
No.
Yes. It's right there. Don't look at me. It's right
96,000. Bro, I'm buying a track car.
there. No, that's not even, and that's not even the fully loaded one. There's one, the tri-motor is like an extra
When
10
it
or 20,000.
came out, he said 50,000.
He says a lot of things. He
does.
says this one's going to be a $20,000 car. It's going to be 40. You know what I mean?
25,000.
That's what I'm saying. And there,
No.
he talked about giving up on that a couple weeks ago. He said it's not attainable, the cheaper car.
Oh, so the
No.
rear wheel drive one is like
Because they
6.6.
just reported earnings last week.
No, I'm
and-
saying there was talk that people were starting rumors that he's not pursuing it anymore because it's not feasible. And then he was like, he didn't give an answer, and then he was giving non-answer. He finally
maybe
gave an
I
answer.
should sell my shares.
Wait, so it is one there, that rear wheel for
Yeah,
58,000.
see, 57,000.
Okay, so then
The range is less than that.
250 miles only. It's like from here to my
right.
house.
So I'm saying the base model is 60. Okay, but yeah, the fully loaded one you're saying was like 100,000.
That one's 76.
Okay.
And that one's
The Cyber Beast,
Beast.
okay.
I want
Okay, you're
that-
right. So
I like the name.
okay, so you'll spend 76,
Oh,
but not
wait,
96.
did they
Okay.
film this on Mars?
Yes, probably. Yes. He's already got a Tesla in space. Why not put one in?
How'd
on
they get
Mars?
that thing to Mars?
I don't know. It's Elon. He can do whatever he wants.
He probably just loaded up in the SpaceX ship. Bam.
Right.
You're insane for buying that. You can buy a track car for with a 3 rows? Oh, come on. I'm getting this instead.
I don't. Who knows? I think I'm going to sell my shares now. You convinced me.
I didn't say to do that. I said, I mean,
I
just said he's at market
another
share.
in other words, you pretty much did.
no, I'm not financial advice.
No, it's not. It's
it's-
sustainability advice, and I took it as I'm selling my Tesla shares because now I'm skeptical.
Well, but again, I mean, you're literally just like going back to Nancy Pelosi. We don't know, but Nancy Pelosi does. Those guys, Congress knows,
so
but we don't. Maybe they're going
What-
to change their mind
what-
about EVs.
what I do is when those 13F filings come out and it says, "Oh, Buffett bought this and Nancy
Yeah.
Pelosi bought this," I just a lot of times what they traded, the stocks are like if I saw Buffett bought a bunch of stock at $40 and now it's
but
at
the
35.
difference is Buffett's sitting in Omaha. He doesn't have. I mean, maybe he has some insider information, but he's
He
literally,
does.
but he's literally not sitting in security briefings that tell him what's going on. Same
You're
idea.
right. Okay.
Let's say Nancy Pelosi knows that we're about to start war with Iran. Okay, going back to oil. Oil's going to go up. She knows that. She's like, oh, we're going to go to war with Iran next week. She knows stuff that we don't know. She knows that oil's going to go up. Tesla would go up. EVs would go up, right? So she knows. She has a whole week to go, okay, how can I make money off this? We're going to go to war.
So there's nothing we can
oil's
do
gonna
about
go
that.
up.
That's just the way it's
But
gonna
she
be.
knows and you don't. She
Right.
has a whole week to
It's not
decide
fair. It's not.
how do I make money off what's about to happen. And you look at there's a whole thing about when, even right now, everything that's going on, there's articles about how many people in Congress own stock in all these, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, stuff like that. All these guys are making money off of us going to war. Or not even going to
Yeah.
war, giving other people money to go to war. And then even now, like in
I
Israel,
thought
like,
going to war is good for the U.S.
it
economy.
is, absolutely. It's good, especially good for the congressman. Right. I mean, that's the whole thing. But, okay, so let's use that as an opportunity to switch topics. When we go to war, when we spend all that money, we don't have money. So what are we doing? We're creating more debt. So what
I thought it ramps up the economy.
it does.
Is that
yes,
isn't that
war,
what they said for the 40s?
war is good for the economy. It is because, well, you put it this way. Everybody in the 40s, Ford was making airplanes, was making like bombers. No, yes, everybody that can build stuff was building stuff for the war, right? So Ford was building airplanes. I forget, people were building tanks and all. They built tanks right here down the road. Literally, they were building tanks right here, if not too far from here from the radio station. I mean, everybody. And then all the guys were going to war, so all the women ended up building the tanks and the fighter, the airplanes.
Yeah.
Rosie the Riveter. So yeah, it was good for the economy. All the men were at war, the women were building airplanes, and everybody was spending money. But in the end, like right now, when we talk about sending money to the Ukraine or Israel or whoever, we don't have money to send. So what are we doing? Creating more debt to do that. We don't have money. I mean, understand that. That's whenever I talk about spending money on this or that, we don't have money to spend. We're running a deficit. We're running a $1+ trillion deficit.
What we talked about last time, which I think you said how come no politicians are talking about not spending?
Right. Other than maybe Rand Paul and a couple others, for the most part, nobody's talking about
And
it.
it's-
Why? Because they all own stock in Raytheon and
Well,
Lockheed Martin. They're
no,
making money going to war.
I think it's because it's most people are going to think to solve a problem you need to throw money at it.
So
and
here's where we are. I use the joke. I've been on the radio since the deficit was $16 trillion. Do you remember what it is right now? You should know this.
33, 34.
35.
30,
Okay. We're about to hit, I think we're at 34 and a half. We're about to hit 35. The service on that debt is now $1 trillion. Just like, again, going back to the idea of credit card interest. The interest on that credit card is
Yeah.
$1 trillion. So this government is losing, just like if you have a bunch of credit card debt, you're spending money on interest payments. This government is spending 1/6 or whatever it ends up being of its money. So imagine a 1/6 of your paycheck was just going to credit card payments, like interest payments. And that's going to keep growing in exponentially. They call it the debt spiral. We call it the death spiral, because that 35 is going to become, if nobody's talking about it today, that means we're not going to solve it anytime soon. 35 is going to become 45, become 50. And that interest, that trillion, is going to become $1.5 trillion, $2 trillion. And what's the solution? It isn't. Nobody's saying let's cut the debt, let's cut the spending. What are they saying? Tax the rich. What happens when you tax the rich? We stop investing into the economy.
Welcome back to Stock Talk with Josh and Nico, Part 2. We're going to pick up our discussion on interest rates and how they truly affect Americans, because traditionally people think that high interest rates are going to negatively affect Americans. However, recently I've had thoughts about how people with large savings actually benefit hugely from higher interest rates. While it's the Americans that don't have a lot of savings who truly are suffering. Because if you if you have to borrow money, well then of course it's going to be a struggle paying with high rates. But on the other hand, if you are not borrowing and you have lots of money in the bank, then you're going to earn lots in interest and you're going to be very rich.
Sounds like you're one of the 1%ers is what it sounds like. And you had too much coffee.
Oh no, my coffee's over there. I'll be back.
Okay.
Just keep it going, he said.
Yeah, so I guess we're talking about interest rates, I guess. So
okay, well here's where we start. Here's the discussion. So here's I want to get your takes on this. So I'll tell you. Let me run through the story. So I bought. I was gonna wait till you put your headset on so we can fix it in post. Okay, so I bought my first house in 2008. Right, I bought it right at the top, right before the crash.
Before
the crash.
crash.
Before. And then, so I bought at the top. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, it's a nice house and stuff. But then, like, had I literally waited like 3 months, I could have been buying stuff out of like foreclosure, and there was one point I could have bought a bunch of condos that have like gone up 5-fold at this point. So I bought this house. I held it for, let's say, 8 years. Okay, I bought this house in Munster near the boss's house, Jim Deedlow here, and I sold it 8 years later for roughly what I paid for it. Okay, I put a bunch of money into it. You know, we had the flood, and I got a new roof and whatever else. So I basically broke even. I probably lost a little bit because I spent so much money making it a nice house, okay? In the last 8 years, that house that basically is worth the same for 8 years has now doubled in price. So if you wanted to go buy that house right now, it'd be double what I sold it for 8 years ago, okay?
Yeah.
This house that I bought when I sold that house has now gone up about 25%, okay?
Okay.
That's good.
So I've made roughly $100,000 in equity on a house for doing nothing in 8 years. That's great for me, right? That's great for me and every other homeowner that was in the market during this. Who is that not good for? You guys want to go buy a starter house.
Exactly, right.
Now that starter house is doubled in price. You're not earning twice as much as we were earning 8 years ago, right?
Mhm.
That's the problem, is that earnings aren't keeping up with inflation.
Oh, yeah.
So this becomes a really interesting discussion, because now not only can you not buy a house, everything costs more. We just talked about, you used to be able to buy cars for, you used to be able to go buy a $5,000 car, nice car for $5,000. Now they're like $20,000 and $30,000. Like, you can't get a cheap car, like a first car or whatever. You end up getting, what happens? You create debt. Instead of buying a car, in the old days, old timers used to tell me these stories about how, like, they'd work at the mill and, like, they take a week's pay and buy a nice car. Like, you used to be able to buy a car with, like, a week's pay.
I know, and like my grandfather, like, he used to, like, buy a lot of cars, sell them a lot. He used to tell me about how he get like 74 Camaros,
Well, I
like
mean,
$800. I'm like,
right.
okay.
So there's a joke about how, people like 50 years ago, they're buying houses for like $500 and 3 raspberries. And now that house is worth $2 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this little old lady
Well,
bought a house and now it's worth $2 million.
You know what's interesting? It also ties in with that is I saw this video about college graduates or just people entering into college. There's like the one statistic is like 50% of college graduates are going to get a job that don't require a degree.
That didn't require a degree,
And
and they have debt.
And they have debt.
Look at me and you.
That's right. Exactly right.
Look at me. I'm talking on the radio all the time. I'm making a jerk out of myself like every morning, and I didn't get a college
But
degree.
the other one is that the job openings don't match
right.
how many people have degrees.
So what ends up happening
So too many people are going to college.
Too many people are going to college, but then I get to say, like, let's say we're in IT. I get to say, I need you to have all of these qualifications, all these certifications, and I'm going to pay you $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And you don't like it, there's 50 other people that want your job.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, the jobs where you do see we need more supply of is like the plumbers, electricians, those type of jobs.
Okay, so if you want to go that direction, we can talk, because I have a teenage son, and I tell him all the time, I said, a couple things. I said, if you want job security, you should get into robot. This is before robots were robots, not Roblox. My daughter isn't in Roblox. I told him, I said, if you learn, again, talking about emerging markets, if you learn to fix and program robots, you'll have and actually do that here at the WJLB in the commercialization.
Yeah.
So they got robots over there. And again, so why is that? Because now we got a fully roboticized McDonald's in Vegas or wherever it is. We got robots making,
Did you see the Wendy's
cheeseburger?
one?
Okay.
No, I saw the Wendy's one that was AI, where the drive-thru's AI.
White Castle does that. You must
White
know.
Castle does that.
All
they
these
started
White
that.
Castles are AI now.
A lot of them started.
I think her name is Julie. Go try it someday.
You mean when you go through the
Yes,
drive-thru, it's not
Yeah.
a
fully
person?
AI. Yes.
Really? How come I
Yes.
haven't heard about
It's been
that?
like that for like 6 months now.
Actually, go to the White Castle
I
right
have
on
not
30.
heard about that.
Yeah,
No,
30 and
in
41
Minneapolis.
is one of the first ones that had it. But again, even the White Castle in Maryville, they have either burger flipping or fry making robots there. They have semi-autonomy. And again, somebody has to fix those robots. You know what I mean? So that's the whole thing is in California, they just went to the,
Why don't they just have a robot fix the robot?
again, that's like the AI. It's like, oh, you want, like, okay, now we have nothing to do. Like, what else
Yeah.
do I have to do? So
We'll all become artists and just spend our
okay.
time playing video games and stuff.
Twitch streamers and all
sounds
that.
like communists are always like, we're all going to become artists. No communist ever goes, I'm going to be a communist, become a garbage man. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to be a musician. That's what people
Because
that's what
the
people
garbage
think of.
man could be the robot.
So well, again, okay, so nobody has to like put oil in the robot or whatever. But I'm saying nobody ever says let's have communism and I want to work in the coal mine. Everybody says I want to be communist and then be an artist or a musician, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's the thing. Everybody wants to have the fun jobs. Okay, so anyway, you guys may be completely distracted. Okay, so California. If you've been following this, the minimum wage thing. California puts
It's
in
like $20
$20
an hour,
minimum wage.
Oh my god.
Who does this hurt? All these literally there were
Small
restaurants
business.
like small business fast food. They're like literally the dude just like locks the door like a week after $20 minimum wage. He just locked the door like we're done. I can't compete. I can't pay you guys. People have been in business for 50 years. Just lock their doors. And then the other ones like McDonald's, they closed a whole bunch of fast food
now
places.
they're going to say we'll get a robot to do it.
So that's what I'm saying is that a whole bunch of fast food places in California closed down, and then now they're putting the robots.
Okay, my whole thing is let that happen and let McDonald's have the robots do it. Don't hire people. But here's the thing: I think these companies that have tens of billions or $100 billion of cash on the balance sheet, make it into a UBI or something, or donate it, or give it back to the government or something.
So here's the thing about taxing the rich. It ultimately trickles down to you. So everything, and I'll give you a perfect example. Again, going back to politics, J.B. Pritzker gets elected in Illinois, one of the richest men ever to become a politician. He didn't pay taxes. He hid toilets and had money offshore. And he's talking about taxing the rich. He is the rich, and he was literally got caught dodging taxes while yelling tax the rich. He gets elected shouting tax the rich in Illinois. What does he do? He raises gas taxes. He raises cigarette taxes, sticker taxes. He raises taxes that disproportionately affect poor people. The poorer you are, the more you're affected by gas going up 20 cents, right? So he runs around going tax the rich, and he raises taxes on the poor people, and then they reelect him. So I'm like, I don't feel bad for you. And then he never taxed the rich. He taxed the poor people. And that's what happens in this country is they run around shouting tax the rich, and then either you get $20 minimum wage and everybody gets fired and laid off, or they say tax the rich and then your gas goes up. I mean, that's the whole thing. Everybody else tax the rich and your prices go up.
But no, because I think the money is ending up on the corporation's balance sheets. And you could argue that, oh, well, they need it for research, or that money's going to trickle down to help the economy. But the bottom line is they don't need to have $50 billion of cash.
Okay, I understand. Apple has more money than some countries, right? Understood. Completely agree. And what you're hearing is a lot of people going, well, record profits. Okay, so think about this. Let's say just pick a company. Pick, Nico Corp makes $1 trillion.
Actually, my LLC is called Criticus Corp.
Criticus, okay. So Criticus makes $1 trillion last year. Inflation's up 4%. Okay, let's say 4%. Let's say 5% round up. So now you made a 5% more this year. Now there's two ways to look at it. You can either say, well, you made the same amount after inflation, or you can say, well, they made record did you make record profits? Did you make the same amount because of inflation?
No, I know what you mean.
So you get what I'm saying? Is like, so people are shouting record profits, but we have record inflation. So if I'm making the same amount,
that's not what I'm talking about.
I don't disagree with the philosophy that there are greedy corporations that are taking advantage of what's happening. But the underlying cause of the inflation, so imagine this. Okay, the cost of lumber goes up. So like my insurance has gone up crazy. So I talk about my house value goes up. Your insurance goes up too, right? Same with like if your property values go up, you're like, it's great until you get your tax bill because now your house assesses for more. I got to pay more taxes. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, if I have a house and lumber costs go away, let's say my house is X thousand feet and it costs this much to replace that. Lumber goes up because of supply chain issues, whatever. The replacement cost of that house to rebuild it if it burns down goes way up because lumber's way up, right?
Yeah.
So lumber's way up, tiles, asphalt tile, the roofing tiles, everything goes way up.
Yeah.
So now, is my house more valuable or is the dollar to buy that house?
Oh, yeah.
So the lumber, that the materials, the pieces of that house are still the same because of the inflation. It costs more to buy that 2x4, right? So that house, am I making more? Is my house worth more on paper? Yeah.
Or am I just keeping up with the new standard?
I'm keeping up. That's the cost of inflation. So the replacement cost on my insurance of my house is dependent on the cost of literally lumber. Okay. So like if lumber goes way down, hopefully my insurance should go down because it'll cost less to replace it if there's a fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my insurance is based on how much that house would cost to rebuild. So again, did I make a bunch of money in my house, or did inflation balance out?
You can measure inflation was 5% last year, and I gained 10%.
Sure.
So I beat inflation.
So how much did you make though? Did you make 10%? No, you made 5%. And then you had to pay taxes on it. So did you make any money?
Yeah, that's true.
See? I mean, that's the funny thing is that people sit here and go,
a scam.
So
I saw this meme that said, imagine taking everyone's money in the country and still being in $30 trillion in debt.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, but imagine these are the guys that are telling you how to live your lives. These guys that I mean, it's kind of like if you have like a crackhead cousin that keeps stealing from you, and you're like, hey, why don't you be in charge of paying my bills for me?
Okay,
give you all my
but
money.
that doesn't change the idea about the corporations having too much money, because that's where the money is going. It's not sure. There's the fraction of the Americans, the top 1% that are rich,
right?
But 99% are not. The government, even though the government takes money from 100 different places, they're in a bunch of debt. So it's the Google, the Apple, the McDonald's, the Walmart. It's all that stuff.
I don't.
All the money is going there. They have it all, and they don't need it all.
So there's a whole issue. So if you guys know, I don't know if I got into all this. So like for instance, I'm on my town's economic development commission. Okay, and one of the things I've said is I hate, I drive all over the country. I drive out to the East Coast all the time. If you drive down I-80 right here, every exit's the same. You've got like a Wendy's, a Starbucks.
Exactly.
Okay? So there's a whole complicated thing about TIFs and, all this stuff that your town is giving Starbucks or Whole Foods money to come to town. It's like, why am I giving a $6 billion company money to build you have money? Why am I paying taxes? Why are you putting in a TIF? So like me and my economic development, I'm always saying I want to help small business. I want people that live in my town to start. I don't want, I can't, in a free market, I can't say no Starbucks, you can't come to town. But I also, if you're asking me who I want, I'd rather have a mom and pop coffee shop as opposed to a Starbucks.
True.
I can't say no Starbucks. You can't pass that law. But I can also say I want to help the mom and pop because I think they're disadvantaged. I think Starbucks and McDonald's have an unfair advantage over the mom and pop, and they get money, and the mom and pop doesn't. So I want to help small business, but there's all of these things in TIFs. Like I said, it's a whole complicated thing about how cities are giving money to these multi-billion-dollar companies to come to town. Like, why are you giving Whole Foods?
Cities do that?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
all a TIF district. It's a whole complicated thing that could be a whole
I thought
several-hour show.
I thought it works like
You don't need
I
Sheriffville-
thought they would buy out a building and say we're gonna put Starbucks would buy out a building and say we're gonna put a Starbucks here, and then maybe the town charges them a tax or something. But Starbucks would still have to buy that building, right?
But what if like Whole
or
Foods
build it?
Okay, in the case if you mentioned Cherville, Whole Foods comes to Cherville and they said we're going to give you like $20 million to build. I mean, even
Who
not
says that?
the town. Go ask your buddy about that.
Because why? Because Cherville thinks that having Whole Foods in the town would
Yes,
help.
because it's a prestigious thing.
Sure.
We get a Whole Foods.
Okay, so why you're saying that's bad?
I'm saying it's bad for the.
If the corporation,
I'm saying it's bad for the grocery store down the street that's been there for 100 years, whose name's on this room. It's bad for them because now that town has put money to Whole Foods. They've picked and choose the winners and the losers.
Mhm.
So I'm taking money from one grocery store that's local, family owned, was until a few weeks ago, and giving it to another corporation that's multinational, that's not based out of my area. How is that fair? How is it fair if Chuck wants to start a coffee shop and Starbucks wants a coffee shop, and the developer and all this stuff, TIF district, Starbucks gets money and Chuck doesn't? Chuck's a local.
Why doesn't Chuck's get money?
Because same idea. Who's giving money to the state reps, and it's a whole complicated discussion. It could take 8 hours.
So then so you're saying you'd have to have a politician who inherently wants to help small businesses.
Like I just said, I don't. Again, it's unfair. Again, it's more of an opinion thing to say if I had to choose what I want in my town, I want small business. I want to support small business. I want it, at the very least, to have the same opportunities for
But
small
at the
business.
same time, that's a strong movement of just people saying I'm going to pick small business over the
No,
corporation.
not pick. You don't get to pick.
You get to vote with your dollars who you buy from.
The consumer gets to.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so
That's
same
what I'm
idea,
saying.
right? The consumer gets to do that. But if the small business doesn't even get to open up shop in town because rent's $5,000 a month, and there's no way I can make money on
You're
that.
right. You're right.
So there you go. So I mean, government has chosen the winner before the race even started.
But do you think as a business gets bigger and more successful, let's say Starbucks, like maybe in the early days,
Pick a company. Pick a company, and I'm going to tell you how much they give to government. Pick
Starbucks.
Okay, so we're Starbucks is. We'll look it up here. Okay, go ahead. So keep talking.
I'm just saying, do you think as it becomes more successful, let's say Starbucks in the 70s or the 80s, that it just becomes more and more likely that they're going to become a monopoly, and that it makes sense that for a company
Absolutely.
to head in that direction. So you can't prevent that. Well, you could set a law that says, "Oh, we're going to cap their income or something."
But look at like I remember when Jeff Bezos was the dude who sold college books. I literally think I bought books from Jeff Bezos. Like I think Jeff Bezos literally put a college book in my box because I was one of his first customers. So I'm saying that's what he was. He started off selling used college books.
Yeah.
He started off being books. And like, what I'm saying is like, okay, so let's see how much do you think Starbucks spent on lobbying last year?
$1 billion.
$1 billion?
Oh no, just lobbying.
Yeah, well, just lobbying. How much do you think they spent on lobbying in Washington?
About 2 or 3 million.
They spent $1 million.
Wait, what?
Spent $1 million in lobbying. Starbucks. Pick any company.
Doesn't Starbucks make like $100 billion a year or something?
Well, I mean, again, it's not a whole
No,
lot.
but just like lobbying. Like kind of a thing of like marketing.
So pick here. So we talked
like you're
about
marketing your business.
So this is-
I
I
would
like
think
marketing.
those corporations that make $100 billion a year, I would think 1% of $1 billion is not that
So
much.
this is one of my favorites. You talked about war earlier. So we talked about the war machine. So Lockheed Martin, for instance, one of my favorite companies to pick on because they basically bankroll Congress. They spend $14 million a year on lobbying, and they basically are essentially lobbying to get their own contracts. So you're giving money,
Yeah.
you're lobbying to get money back. So it's an investment.
Wait, real quick. Isn't Starbucks CEO Schultz? Wasn't he part like in the government? Like, didn't he have a role?
I remember him on an interview a couple years ago saying we need to tax the rich more.
Well, and again, it's a left-leaning company.
Yes.
So I know.
Yeah,
so,
but no, like, wasn't he like a politician?
Howard
Politician?
Schultz.
Yeah. let me
no,
check.
right now there's a guy named Laxman. I can't even pronounce his name. He was. So here's the interesting thing
Former
about
CEO.
Starbucks. So here, interesting. The guy before him, about 10 years ago, came out and said, "I don't believe it." He basically said, "I'm anti-Second Amendment. I don't think people should be allowed to carry weapons. I don't want." There's a whole thing about guys who are bringing guns into Starbucks, even though it was legal. And he said, "I don't." He's like, he literally said, "If you believe in the Second Amendment, I don't want your money."
Yeah.
So I stopped going to Starbucks. I said, "Okay, I'm a Second Amendment person.
Yeah.
You don't want my money? Done. I will
Yeah.
not go to Starbucks unless I'm purely desperate. I don't want to have a fight with my wife."
Yeah.
So he made it clear. Again, he made it, and I'm fine with that. Make your position clear. There was discussions years ago, if you remember, about like people baking gay cakes for gay couples
Yep, I
getting
remember that. And
married.
they denied
And
it. Yeah.
there's a whole thing about there's memes about bake the cake and stuff like that. So again, it's like you're a Christian and a gay couple wants you to bake the cake. I don't think you should be forced, but also you should say, look, this is it should
if it's
be
your business, you should have
if
the
it's your
option.
business, you should have the option to do that. Just like this
And
guy
that
from
makes
Starbucks
sense.
says, I don't believe in the Second Amendment. I said, like you said, I'm a Dunkin' guy.
But at the same time, I think you could argue that that's a Starbucks compared to a one location coffee shop is a lot different.
Right, but okay, Chuck's Coffee Shop doesn't have $1 million a year to go to Washington and lobby.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so here's what's interesting about this is understand this.
It could also be like a high risk, low reward thing. Like, say, get like a mom and pop shop. You not really know like how the people in the community will react to it. So you don't know how much money for like each year they will make compared to like a Starbucks. It's kind of like.
But I'm never going to have Chuck's Coffee's never have $1 million a year to go spend on
But that's
lobbying.
what I'm saying is whatever company starts to rise the ranks
Right.
is automatically
here-
going to become
okay,
monopoly eventually.
So here's
unless
what,
you cap
do,
it.
Do you know? No, here's why that is. Okay, here's what happens. I'm Walmart. I can afford an army of lobbyists. I can
Yeah.
afford an army of accountants. Chuck's Sporting Goods shop across the street, little mom and pop shop can't afford to do that. So what I do is I make that market, I make that that sector more difficult. I basically imagine the idea of Walmart's going up the ladder and then cutting the rungs as it goes up. Amazon, everybody. So they're going up the ladder and they're breaking the rungs behind them so nobody can come up behind them. And they're not doing that. They're using that through lobbying. They're doing that that's where those millions of dollars. So they're literally saying Walmart can afford all these complicated, even, you pick the topic. Like, for instance, they wanted to do a sugar tax in Chicago.
Yeah, I
And then,
remember that.
so think about that. If I'm a little restaurant, if I'm a little store, I'm a little mom and pop store, I got to go through every single one of those items, figure out how much sugar's in it. I got to update my cash registers. That's a pain in the butt.
Okay. So that's just like economies of scale.
Right.
Meaning the bigger you get, the more success you get, the more money you
The
have.
more
to,
lobbying you're doing, the more people you have in your pocket.
Exactly.
The more TIF money you're getting
So
because you're Whole Foods.
So what I'm saying is, does that mean the only way to prevent that would be we're going to make a law that caps you at a certain number of income or locations or something?
So back
or market share. Or
back to
something.
my Amazon idea. I knew Amazon when it was literally just an online used bookstore. Okay, I've seen him go from online used bookstore to what it is today.
Yeah.
Right? Is it fair to go, Jeff Bezos? You've dedicated. There's a picture of Amazon, like a handwritten,
I've seen
spray
that.
painted
Yeah,
sign
yeah.
when he had his own little office.
Yeah.
Is it fair to go, Jeff Bezos? You've invested your entire life. You came up with a winning idea,
And you're capped at this.
and now that you're successful, we're going to take your money away. Why would
No, but that's an extreme way to put it.
No, it's not, because we're talking about right now in government. We're talking about unrealized gains.
But
so let's talk about this, because this is important. This is an important issue. Unrealized gains. Okay, do you understand how that works?
yes, that's
So-
the same thing with stocks.
Okay, Elon Musk owns all of his money is tied up in Tesla. Let's say so. Elon Musk, even like Grimes, whoever said Elon Musk was like one of the richest guys in the world. He lived like he was homeless. He lived in an apartment with like no furniture and stuff like that. She said I was miserable. He acted like he was broke. Right? He was one of the richest men in the world. Why? Because he really didn't have a whole lot of money. It was all tied up in the stock.
Yeah.
So imagine Elon Musk owns whatever, pick a number, $50 billion in Tesla stock. I don't know. I have no idea what the number is.
It's actually more like 200 or
200,
250.
250 billion. Okay, so Elon Musk has $250 billion in Tesla stock. He doesn't have any money, right? He literally has pieces of paper that have a
Yeah,
value.
but that's
No, but I'm saying,
that's
okay.
so different though.
No, it isn't, because
Yes, it is.
Okay, listen,
Because if
I'm going somewhere with this. So check this out though. Elon Musk has $250 billion in Tesla stock. Okay,
Mhm.
he doesn't sell it because it would look bad if Elon sells his stock, right? looks like something's wrong. Okay.
No.
If he's
Yes, it
selling
is.
stock, it
No,
looks bad.
it doesn't, because there's lots of CEOs.
It just happened last month.
No,
though.
that's not true. There's so many executives who sell shares for different reasons.
And they have to disclose it, and
yes,
people talk about it. Like,
but
why
that
is Elon selling?
That is not a reason.
Okay.
That does not look bad. It's not bearish on the stock just because an
It
executive.
does.
Yes, it
sells
does.
It does
No,
look
Because it just
I
happened.
Okay, so
I
here.
disagree.
Okay, so Elon.
I
So think about this.
disagree.
Elon owns $250 billion in Tesla stock. Okay, here's the pie, and they come after him for unrealized gains. Okay, so Elon doesn't.
What does that mean?
So unrealized gains. So let's say
You
you
haven't
own.
sold it yet. I understand.
Okay, so you don't have any money. You don't have money to. How do you pay your taxes if you're holding on the pieces of paper that say I'm a Tesla share?
You sell some.
Right. So think about that. So he's got 250. Let's just say 250 billion. He's got 250 million shares. He doesn't have cash. He has shares. They tax him on unrealized gains, like 20%.
How do you pay your tax?
How does he pay his tax? He's got to sell 20% of his shares to pay his
Which
taxes.
is what he did, I think.
Okay. What happens the next year? He has to sell 20% of his shares. What happens the next year? He has to pay 20%. What happens? Eventually, he's got 0 shares because he sold them all for taxes and he still doesn't have any money. He gave it all away for taxes. Think about that. Unrealized gains, they're literally taking a percentage of that pie every year until you have nothing left.
You're saying
Yes.
before you sell, you're paying taxes.
He's having that look. He's the light bulb right there is blinking. Unrealized gains. He wrote a $60 billion check or some ridiculous number.
Yeah,
and,
it was
and then
crazy.
Elizabeth Warren's like, he's still paying. It's like, Elizabeth Warren, I just wrote a $60 billion check. You gonna ride me now?
But okay,
Like,
but wait,
I can
wait a
look
second.
here. I'm gonna
wait a
Google it
second.
right now while we're talking about it. Go ahead.
I know what you're talking about, but
He did that same exact thing with when he bought Twitter X or whatever you call it.
And they literally, it was
when I have-
government sat down and said, hey, we're gonna tax Elon. That literally is what we're gonna.
and that's part of the reason why he moved out of California.
That and you know what California is doing now? They're charging a leaving tax. They're charging a leaving tax.
Okay, when I have an unrealized gain, I don't pay taxes.
15
You don't
billion. So this was 2 years ago. Elon had to pay like $15 billion.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Okay, and let's look it up. So
Decent
Elon's
amount.
leaving. So let's look that up.
Pay us because you're leaving.
California leaving. Well, and the whole idea was.
It's kind of like a divorce.
So think about this. So they go Elon. It's 0.4% over $30 million. So if Elon moves, he has to pay 0.4% to California just to move.
That's like
So
billions. for him.
0.4 any net worth over $30 million. So imagine the idea is I invent something in California. Okay, I'm in California. I create a business. I invent something, and I'm like, you know what? It's too expensive. I'm moving to Texas, just like Elon did. Oh, there's a leaving tax, 0.4%. Like, wait,
I mean, I have to admit, they're getting pretty creative with how they come up with some of these
Right.
taxes, though.
right. I mean, that's the whole thing is they get creative with these taxes. There's food and beverage taxes. There's taxes on your wheels. I
Well, that's
mean,
why
there's-
the government's a
Plastic
scam.
bag tax.
Right.
The government is a
So
scam.
here's the funny thing. My wife is from New Jersey, and I was there. New Jersey's got a bag tax, and they got rid of plastic bags. Guess what happened in New Jersey? Plastic bag usage went up. No joke. And
Right.
that's, I mean, let's Google that. New Jersey plastic bags. They did a study because, again, it wasn't about results. It was about feelings. So they put in, so like I go to New Jersey, she's like, don't forget your paper bags or whatever. When I go go anywhere, she's like, don't forget your paper bags.
Didn't
Here.
they do that at Whole Foods or something?
But that's a feelings thing.
Or Aldi's or
So
something?
I mean, they
plastic
have it in the city, though.
consumption in New Jersey tripled in 2022 after the
From
plastic
what?
ban. From the plastic ban. So they banned
That doesn't make any
plastic.
sense.
It doesn't make sense. But it's a
How did it
USA
go up if they ban it?
plastic consumption tripled after they put in a
How
ban.
is that possible?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Like I don't know. I'm going to go there and
Okay.
find out. I'm going to ask
Okay,
him where's the
but
plastic coming
Back to the unrealized gain.
Okay.
That's not how that works.
from. Okay, explain how it works.
I-
How do you think it works?
I pay taxes when I sell, not when it.
But okay, those are realized gains. If I buy Amazon for 100 this year and sell it next year for 200, the realized gains
Yeah.
are the $100. If you hold imagine that. Imagine like you pick a stock and okay, so here you go. Nico buys a stock for like $1 and they announce they've revolutionized the world and now your stock's up 1,000%. And you owe unrealized gains. Like, but I haven't sold the stock. I don't have any money. I want to hold this stock and see what happens. Now you get hit for Nico, you owe us like $10 million. Like, but I don't have $10 million. I own stock. You know what I mean? Like,
But that's not how it works, though.
that's absolutely how
No,
unrealized.
it's not. You don't pay taxes for unrealized gains.
Yes, that's what they want
you-
to. That's what they want to do right now.
Okay, well that's different.
No, but I'm saying that's what they hit Elon Musk with unrealized gains. So here, let's Google it and see where we're at with this.
What do you mean? That's not the law. That's not how it works, though.
That's what. But I'm saying
You sound so lost in life.
that's what they want.
That's
Okay, here
not
we go.
how
This
it
is from
works.
2 days ago. Okay, right there. It's Fox News, but whatever. You can look it up. Biden's capital gain tax would crush the economy. So let's look at this. Unrealized gains tax.
Okay, so you're saying they're proposing
40,
it.
right? But I'm saying that's what I'm saying. Let's talk about it now before they destroy the
Sure,
economy.
that makes sense. But
But
you
they did
made
this
it
to,
sound like
they did
that's
this to
the
Elon.
law,
No.
though.
I'm saying they did this to Elon specifically. He paid $15 billion.
But how is that? How? What do you mean they made a law for one person? They made a tax code just for one person?
I don't know exactly how they managed to do it, but let's look at this. I'm going to Google it because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I know for a fact Elon wrote. So let's look. So like even this talks about how there's an article on Reddit talks about how unrealized gains tax Elon could lose $200 billion because of unrealized gains tax.
What
That's a
what I
theory.
do remember is in the last couple of years, I remember when, like, I think it was in relation to Berkshire Hathaway, but they made a law not to pay taxes on the unrealized gains. But what you do have to do is you have to report on your balance sheet your realized or unrealized, or the unrealized gain on your balance sheet has to change.
Okay, so this is an article from 2021. It says Elon is again MSNBC, not Fox News, faces a tax bill of more than $15 billion made on stock options, and then he also talks about much is made lately of unrealized gains as a tax avoidance. So he had to sell 10% of his Tesla shares
I remember.
to pay that bill. It's on unrealized gains. So I mean that's what I'm
So
saying.
you're saying they picked him out individually, and
I don't know how, but they do that. I mean, look it up. I'm not trying to be an expert on this, but I know he wrote a $15 billion check. I know that happened, and it was based on it. But again, he didn't have the money. Think about that. He had to sell shares of stock to have the money to pay his taxes on something that he didn't have.
Yeah.
He didn't sell the stock and then pay taxes on it like you're saying. That's realized gains.
That's crazy.
Right.
It's crazy, but at the same time, we're talking about the richest guy in the world here.
But again, like,
but
but
still
it starts
not
with
the- yeah.
him, and then it comes down
You're
to.
right. No, you're
but again,
right. You're right.
The IRS wasn't going to hire 87,000 agents to come after Elon. They were going to use it to come after your grandma that's selling stuff on Etsy and made more than $600 and go, little old lady, you made $200 too much. You owe taxes.
I know.
So, I mean, those 87,000 people weren't coming after Elon. They weren't coming after the super rich. They were coming after everybody.
You remember when Cash App like lowered the limit of
I
like,
went
when
to go
they're gonna
cash.
tax people?
I went to go cash a check the other day. It wasn't even that much, and she's like, "I got to run your name, and I got to send you a text, and all." I'm like, wait, what? I come in here. It's like they are tracking every time that you take out like $600. You can go in and just whatever cash. And this is that whole thing is like even there's stuff where you can go like let's say you wanted to buy a car and you let's say you save money for all this time. You go to I'm going to take out $10,000 to go buy a car in cash. There's like a whole thing. They have to report it to everybody, and they're like, Nico, why'd you have $10,000 in cash? Like, well, I bought a car. Like, well, why is it your business? It's my money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is that we live in a world where the IRS wants to know why you have money. If you're saving money for a house, you have to have all this cash for the down payment. You have to have thousands of dollars at closing to pay for your insurance, to pay for closing costs. And then they're like, well, where's that money? I mean, literally they asked me, where's that money coming from?
They asked me, the car that I showed you? I bought a 91 Benz. When I went to the bank to take the money out, they asked me, like, oh, well, what's this
What's it
for?
for? Like, why is it your business? My money. Why is it your business? Why is it your business? I could be buying a car. I could be buying drugs. I could be buying hookers and blow. Make sure you cut that out. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not your business. I could be like, I'm dying of cancer. I'm going to spend all my money on hookers and blow. It's not your business how I spend my money.
Well,
I pay my taxes on the front
tell
end.
them that.
You probably could. I mean, there's a whole joke. I ran into an IRS agent. He's like, even like Al Capone. Al Capone murdered people, did all this stuff. He went to Alcatraz for tax avoidance.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
For tax evasion.
Well, I don't remember. I wasn't there. But
You weren't there. It was
No,
1930.
I remember watching the documentary.
But
I
I'm
don't remember
saying,
when
I
it
mean, that's
happened.
the whole thing. Is I mean, that's even a joke. Like they were talking about guys that had illegal gambling. He's like, if they would have just reported on their taxes, I have an illegal gambling ring.
Yeah.
Here's $5 million. They would have left them alone.
Yeah.
They
did
Oh,
all.
you remember in Scarface
Yeah.
with Tony? When
Did he go down with taxes?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is you could do anything as long as
That's
you
how
pay
they
your
got him,
taxes.
yeah.
But I mean, that's how ridiculous the system is. Like, oh, you run an illegal gambling ring? Cool, just pay taxes. It's cool.
Right.
Not my problem.
Yeah, Tony, they found him with like, he was like counting like $5 million in cash, and like he wasn't paying his taxes.
That's Scarface?
Yeah.
But I'm saying that there's a difference between Scarface having, $10 million in his mansion and you having a job, having a paycheck, putting a little money in the bank. I mean, it's clear that there's a paper trail of, okay, you put $100 a week in the bank, and then once you have $10,000, you take it out and you go buy a car. Again, it's like, why is it their business? If you were showing up at the bank every week and like depositing $1 million in cash, is okay, there's what's going on here. But like it's average, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing weird about having a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
That's what gets concerning.
I mean, I think this goes back to what it goes back to what we were saying still about the corporations on the balance sheet have a bunch of money.
Right.
And I just feel like that's not necessary.
Okay, well then don't run a company and don't have the money. I mean, but I'm saying also
No,
going
that's
back
not what
to
I mean.
okay,
That's not what I
going
mean.
back to like the idea of being prepared for stuff. You know, I think everybody should have. I think you should have 3 months or 6 months put away, rainy day fund, right? Is it crazy if I say you guys should have some money put away in case of an emergency? So why shouldn't a business? I understand $10 billion. It seems
That's
excessive. I
different.
get
That's
right.
different.
I'm saying it seems excessive, but to me, the bigger the company, like Apple, it makes sense that they have billions of dollars
more
to pay all their employees because you don't want all your
But
employees.
that's not
going,
how it works, though.
Okay.
I'm not talking about when I told my friend this. He said, "Oh, well, that's these companies spend it on research and development." Apple spent like a couple billion or something on research and development. Meanwhile, they have 100 billion they're putting. I'm talking about after they pay employees, expenses, and the research, then they're just saving it in cash.
Right.
And I'm
Emergency
saying
fund.
that, yeah,
Okay.
But you know, Apple being a good company
that's
and making
different.
money
That's
is
so
good
different.
So what do you
These-
want them to do though? I mean, you want to take their money? I mean, I
I
guess
want,
that's,
I want more money in a regular American's bank account.
Okay.
Than the corporation's
So here's
balance
the
sheet. That's what
problem
I'm saying.
that you are blaming the corporations for inflation, which was caused, and I can show you because all my friends are sharing this on Facebook right now. I'll show you the graphs on this.
But you know, when people just have more money, they're just going to spend it on those corporations, though.
I mean, even like you want to be critical of like
But
Jeff. Think
It
about
doesn't
this.
matter. It doesn't
Everybody
matter.
was critical of Jeff Bezos for buying that yacht. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about him. Think about how many hundreds of people got put to work, how many families got fed because they were working for months and months on this yacht. So
True.
people don't think about that. People don't go, I mean, even like, look, you may be jealous of people that have like boats and stuff, but there's a
Yeah,
bunch of people
but-
that make money building
Okay,
boats.
but here's the thing. When you make those arguments like that,
jet plane, same idea, $30 million
Okay,
plane.
but-
Somebody built that plane. And
okay,
made
but
money
that's
doing it.
okay, you're right, but that's not the reality though. That's not the reality.
Of what?
Because he's trying to say that, oh, well, it benefits the workers and these other people and stuff.
It does because they're going to
And-
spend that money.
But while that is true, who actually has the money? I think the average more than half of Americans don't have like $1,000 or a couple.
But again,
$1,000.
you're blaming Apple for that. Did
I am,
Apple
yeah.
put a gun to their head and say, "Buy my iPhone"?
Why would you blame Tim Cook and Apple and not your politician?
But again,
And maybe it is the politicians.
it's funny because there are people that are critical of Jeff Bezos. I'm like, you're going to talk crap about Jeff Bezos. You're going to go home and there's going to be like 5 Amazon packages on your porch. You gave him that money willingly. You gave money to Amazon. Nobody forced you to invest in Amazon. Nobody forced you to buy Amazon products. You did it willingly. There's a difference between buying Amazon products and being forced to, whatever. You're talking about paying taxes, paying in a Social Security system that you're never going to see. That's a Ponzi scheme.
But when people say, like how you brought up the California thing where they pay $20. Paying
$20 minimum wage.
The small businesses couldn't do that. That makes sense.
Right.
But that's not who I'm complaining about because the small businesses don't have $10 billion of cash.
Okay.
I'm talking about the Costco, Walmart, Walgreens, Starbucks, McDonald's.
And we talked about that the government it's an unfair playing field because the government's giving them all sorts of money and incentives.
But it's not a valid argument
Okay,
to say if you raise the employee wages that it's going to raise the prices of the cheeseburgers or whatever.
I never said that.
But that's the argument,
But we
though.
just saw what happened in California. All these mom and pops, a bunch of people got laid off, and a bunch of people are getting replaced by robots. I mean, you're seeing it real time. I don't have to tell you. Just watch California. Maybe it will end up a positive for them.
But that's so the corporations profit more. That's
So,
why they don't want to pay $20
So here's a perfect
plus.
example. When people and I don't know if they still do this, but when you go to get a job at McDonald's, they actually talked about, like, in the hiring process, they talked about, like, we're going to pay you this much. Here's how to get on welfare. Here's how to get food stamps. You know what I mean? Like, you qualify. We pay you so little, you qualify for food stamps. So what is that? It's government subsidizing their low wages. Okay. So again, they're making full use of that. They're going, okay, but and then so for instance in Chicago, they had a big box tax. So if you had a little store they didn't tax you, but Walmart and Best Buy, they had a big box store tax.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so again, and then guess what happened?
They left.
Walmart's gone, Best Buy's gone.
What do you mean they're gone?
They're leaving.
left, yeah.
They're leaving. Walmart was working on these neighborhood Walmarts and stuff. They closed. So I'm saying the last Walmart, I think the last Walmart's about to close.
Yeah,
in
but if
Chicago.
the whole country does that, they don't have a choice then.
Okay, so
You could say a tax, or I was going to say make the minimum wage 25 an hour or something, or 30 an hour.
so here's the thing though.
for
is
the
that-
big here
Okay, here becomes the next question. So I am a small business owner. If this area right now said $25 minimum wage, I would sit there. I'd sit down, look at my books.
Not the small
Can't do it.
business. Not the small
I'm just
business.
saying, if it was me, I can't afford it.
But not the small. I'm saying
Okay.
only for big business.
I can't find the graph.
I'm
But
talking about-
basically, it's the M2 money supply.
I'm talking
chart.
about the companies that.
Okay.
That's what you sent me today, right?
That's what I sent you today. Oh, you're right. I sent it to you. So that's what's causing the inflation. It's not Amazon and Apple or whoever. It is that inflation, is that spending, that stimulus check, all those checks. We didn't have the money for that. That's spending. Did you show them the chart while we're talking? Because you have it. I sent message it to you. Like that, there's no question. It was the M1 and the M2 money supplies. The money
they
created.
went up.
Right. It went
We
up.
know that.
No, it
That's-
didn't go up a little bit. It went straight
I know,
up.
but that's
during
that's
COVID.
old news though.
Right, but it's still happening though. It's still affecting us. We're getting into more debt because of it. So that's what I'm saying is that, but we could say that's old news, but inflation doesn't go down. It's not negative. So every year it's getting more expensive to do that. So here, I'm going to show you.
But they're not printing any
So,
more
like-
money though.
Look at the chart. It's look at that chart and tell me that. Like you look at that
Where's that?
chart and go, that is concerning, right? You look at those charts. So it's hard to blow up, but that's the Fred charts. It's M2 money supply
it is,
charts,
it is
inflation.
concerning. It is concerning.
So you look at that and go, that doesn't. If I saw anything
Oh,
on a
that's what it is.
graph, and in the last couple of years at the end it goes straight up, I go, something is not good here. And it's not going down; it's going up.
It
It's-
goes right up. Yeah.
spending is going up. Biden just passed another. They just passed a whole bunch of new
Yeah,
bills
but
to
isn't
spend money.
spending different than printing?
No, because you have a deficit. So you have to print money to make up the deficit. So if you're bringing in $3 trillion and spending $6 trillion, you have to print $3 trillion. All that money that's going to the Ukraine, whether you say it's money going to the Ukraine or going to Lockheed Martin, that's printed money.
So what printing money? What happens if they print $1 trillion? Does that help them pay off their debt?
There's jokes about printing $1 trillion bill. Okay, so again, I think I talked about this last time. What happened when Zimbabwe tried that?
They had really bad inflation.
They have
Yeah, inflation went up.
$100 trillion bills. There was a
That's
picture.
what they did.
If you guys get a chance, read up on Weimar. Somebody posted this, tagged me in a bunch of times. They were literally shoveling cash into their furnaces to keep warm in Weimar after World War I. So there's a whole thing about Weimar economies you should read up on. It's really interesting. But look at that chart and tell me that's
That goes to 2022.
right. And it's not. And they just passed the latest budget. There's still a deficit. We don't have we haven't had a balanced budget since Clinton. So that's what I'm saying is, but think about this. Like, imagine that was your credit card. Okay. That's your credit card. Every month that goes up, your credit card, and that's actually happening in the United States. Credit card is now, credit card debt has reached $1 trillion. So every month that goes up, what happens? You owe more interest on that credit, right?
What is this chart called?
So this is one of these is the M2 money supply. This is billions of dollars. This is how much
That says
money we
M1
printed.
though.
This is the M1 money supply, and is that inflation? So that's inflation. This is the CPI, so the Consumer Price Index, which we just found. They had a CPI numbers a few weeks ago. It came in hotter than expected. It's still coming in hotter than everybody expects it to be. So you print dollars. So look at that. That goes back to 2020 during COVID. We printed a whole bunch of money, and then CPI followed that.
And look, this is what I'm saying though. It only went to 2022. Though it hasn't. The last
Because
few-
that's the amount of money that you're printing. But I'm saying that we know that even this year, the new budget, there is a deficit. We're not going down. We didn't have a balanced
profitable,
budget.
Yeah.
So the government is still spending trillions more than it's bringing in. So this doesn't end. But I'm saying the more, just like your credit card, the higher your credit card debt is, the more interest you're paying.
Yeah.
And that's what we call the debt spiral, or the
Right.
death of debt spiral, because every year, every time that it goes up, we owe more money. So
Mhm.
of that $6 trillion, okay, imagine that government brings in like $3 or $4 trillion, and $1 trillion of that goes to servicing that debt. You're talking about tax the rich. Well, what does it matter at that point? You tax the rich, and all that money's just going to debt. You're creating more
You're
debt.
right. You're right. Okay.
you
So
can-
then,
So that's the thing, though, is
But-
look at that taxing the rich. Eventually what happens? There is a ceiling to taxing the rich. It's 100%. There were people like Bernie Sanders that were
You're-
talking about an 85, 90% tax on the rich. I mean, what's the point of doing anything if the government's going to take 90% of the money you make? Like, why would Jeff Bezos
True.
even bother?
Yeah.
I just shut it down and
Okay,
go
no,
home.
I see what you're saying. Where it doesn't, the amount it contributes to is not really going to solve the problem.
Right.
But
You're always spending more than you're bringing in.
what you would do is
Balance the budget. Stop spending.
you
It's that easy.
just keep printing money.
Right. You just keep printing money, and look what's happening. You keep, again, going back to the analogy of, did I use this analogy with you guys of like Pokemon or shoes or whatever? Pick something that you can buy that goes up in value. Let's say like Nike shoes or something. I have a limited edition Jordan. Okay, you buy the Jordan for $200 and it goes up. There's dudes are paying 50 grand for shoes. I think it's crazy, but I'm watching videos about it. It blows my mind. Or watches. So let's say there's a limited edition Jordan shoe and you buy it for $200 and it goes up to $1,000. Okay, you got $1,000 shoe. And all of a sudden they go, oh, this is a popular shoe. We're gonna make like 1 million more of them. What happens to the value of that shoe? It goes down.
Yeah.
Just like, or Pokemon
Just
cards
supply
or
and
whatever.
demand, yeah.
Supply and demand. You print more money, just like Zimbabwe. We print more money, it's less valuable. So that's what's happening.
So
the
in
more
other
money
words,
you print,
okay. So the country's in a bunch of debt.
right?
They could
continue
pay off debt
With what?
wait. They could pay off debt by printing more money. But the problem with that is you get inflation.
You get inflation,
Or
right?
what you could do is you could curb inflation, not print any money. But then the way you're going to try to pay off your debt is like how you said, by taxing the rich and stuff like that. with
But it's
tax
still not
dollars.
enough money, though.
But it's not even
enough
close.
money.
It's not
right.
even close.
Not even close. You're still $1 trillion.
because
off.
that debt that you built has been based off of printing money.
Right.
So it's these astronomical
Right.
levels, not anywhere near what the actual tax dollars
So
comes from.
everything
income.
comes back. So every solution that you're proposing, tax the rich, do this, do that. Everything could be fixed by just not spending as much money.
Yeah.
Where is that money going? It's going to Lockheed Martin, who's doing what? They're spending $15 million
So
lobbying every year.
the taxing the income doesn't even really matter, really.
There's people that joke, if you can print more money, why am I paying taxes? If you can print $3 trillion, why don't I just not pay taxes and you print the other $3 trillion? Why don't I just get to keep the money? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it would be bad for the
because of
economy.
inflation.
Because of inflation. But I'm saying it's like, if you could just print money, why am I paying you taxes? Why don't you just print more money? Again, that's as ridiculous as some of these ideas that the government's coming up with.
Okay.
That's what happens when it's not backed by gold anymore.
And so
How would that change things?
because you can't print more money than you have gold to back it. So you can go back to
That
So
shoe
you
thing
can
that
go
you just
back
said, yeah.
to the creation of the Federal Reserve. You can go back to Nixon taking us off the gold standard in 1970, whatever it was. That was, to me, the beginning of the end right there when Nixon took us off the gold standard. So that, and again, there's a whole thing about Kennedy. There you go into the Kennedy conspiracy. He wanted to end the Fed and all. He had all these crazy ideas to fix government, and then what happened? His head got blown off. So, I mean, again, you know.
So 2022 income for the
So we had
United
$5
States.
trillion.
No, wait.
Okay.
Five. You could use that number, but I'm paying attention to half of it came from income taxes,
Right.
Because that's kind of what we're talking about. So really, it's $2.5 trillion, and we're $35 trillion in debt. So we're looking at
Well, not even just talk about your average. But what is the budget for next year? So we said we're bringing in $5 trillion. What is the budget? I think it's $7 trillion. U.S. budget for 2023 or 24. It's a year ahead. So
459.
no, that's not right. That's the omnibus. So you look at it, and again, it's buried. You should be able to Google it, and it should be like in big letters. Like here's our. So the deficit was 1.7. So we brought in 5, and we're spending 1.7 more. So we're spending almost $2 trillion more than we're bringing in, and that's been happening every year going back decades. The only person that even got close to it was Bill Clinton. We haven't even talked about trying to balance the budget for 30 years now. They haven't even talked about it. It hasn't even been discussed other than like Rand Paul.
So, in other words, we're not going to. Let's say we don't print money and we don't raise taxes like crazy. But
Okay, here's the question. Here's the next question.
But raising the taxes would help the income that United States gets, though.
Okay, so here's always my trick
Yeah,
question.
but it's still like this spending habits of the entire government. What are they going to do with the money then?
Well, you need to spend less, but
You're going to spend more money, right? It's like, I have more money to spend. They're not going to go, oh, well, I've got more money. I'm going to balance the budget. Like, oh, I've got
They
more
could
money. I'm
say
gonna spend.
that.
They could. They haven't for 30 years. Why would they start now? Why would they
Because
start now? Because we want them to. I want them to. I've been on these airwaves for 10 years saying, when are we going to balance the budget? No even talking about it. It's just like fixing a problem. If you're an alcoholic, unless you start saying, hey, I'm an alcoholic, I've got a problem. They're not even pretending like it's a problem right now. They're saying, oh, it's cool. Even Fed Chair Powell was talking about, he keeps bringing it up, and they just want to change the subject. He wants to talk about debt. He's like, this is a
So
problem.
I
Our
guess-
debt rating,
I
our
guess-
bond rating has gone down.
okay. But besides for that, what's the downside to getting more and more debt?
So here, I'm going to ask you a trick question real quick, and then we'll get back to that. So you talk about taxing the rich. What percentage of taxes do you think the top 10% of earners in this country pay? What percentage? So you've got people are paying taxes. Okay, let's say the top 50%.
Top 10.
So let's say that, okay, the top 10% of earners in this country, what percentage of the taxes do you think they pay?
Wait.
10%, the richest people,
Yeah.
the richest 10% of this country, what percentage of the overall of the taxes collected, how much do you think comes from the
How about
top?
30%?
What do you think? So top 10%, the richest people in the country, what percentage of all that money, that $5 trillion that the government brings in?
Well,
What?
that just said income tax contributes to 50%.
Okay,
So 2.5
so
trillion.
so $3 trillion and then plus all the other stuff. So what percentage of that do you think comes from the richest people?
I'm gonna say it's probably 2.5 trillion or something.
Well, no, I'm saying percentage-wise. He was saying 30%. So the
Percentage
rich,
of what? The total U.S. income?
the money
No.
that are paid in taxes. So you're saying tax the rich, right? We tax the rich. What percentage of taxes do you think the rich pay?
It would be 2.5.
No, percentage. A percentage.
I'm gonna get to the percentage. I think
Okay.
it's 2.5 out of the 3. So that's 80%.
So the top 10 richest, top 10% of this country are paying
Probably
the
85%.
majority of the taxes.
Yeah,
the
90%.
top the
maybe.
top 50% of people in this country are paying 90% of the taxes.
Yeah.
So what's
Oh, the top
they
50,
so the top 50% is paying most of the taxes. So
And then the rest of us
people
do
that
too.
don't have money, you don't have to pay a whole lot of taxes. They're paying the bill. We're riding,
They
we're
coattails,
riding on
really.
their coattails. They're paying the
Yeah,
bill,
that's
and we get to
different.
live here. No,
That's
it
different.
isn't.
Yes, it
Because you're
is.
saying tax them more, so they pay 76%. What do you think they should pay? 90%? Like how much you want to tax?
No,
the
I'm not
rich?
saying that. I'm saying whatever the number is, 20%, 30% you're paying an income tax. That's a lot different for someone who makes 30 grand a year than someone who makes 3 million.
Right,
a
that's what I'm
year.
saying. The person that pays 30 grand, they're probably getting a refund. They're not paying taxes. They're
Did they
paying
get a refund?
their
today?
income taxes. But again, they're paying taxes. The inflation is a hidden tax. The gas taxes, the liquor tax, the soda tax, your cell phone bill has like 10% taxes on it. I go to Chicago, I buy a hot dog, there's a 10% tax on it.
City tax.
City tax. No joke, like 12% to buy a hot dog in Chicago. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm not paying income taxes. My income, like if you make 30 grand, you're probably not paying much income tax. You're probably getting a refund. If you got kids, you're probably making money. But you're paying all these hidden taxes. Your chicken has gone up at the grocery store. Everything's costing double. You pay $1 every time you put a gallon of gas in your car. That's.
So you're saying raising that tax rate would what? It's not.
I'm
gonna,
saying it's not going to do anything because you're still going to have a $2 trillion deficit. I'm saying the rich
but
are already paying the
it
majority
is
of.
going to do something though.
But you think that they're going to suddenly go, okay, I'll meet you in the middle. You guys pay an extra $1 trillion. We're going to cut the trillion and we'll balance the budget. No, they're going to spend
that
more
would be
money.
ideal.
That would be. That would be great.
But they're not.
But they're not. They just keep adding to the debt, and that's the problem. Is they're adding.
Okay, so they-
doesn't matter who's in the White House.
So
Doesn't matter who's
how
in
much?
Congress.
How much do they spend? How much?
It was like $7 trillion roughly. So we're bringing in like let's say 5, and we're spending like 7.
No,
Okay.
wait a second. We're bringing in 5, and
We're
they're
bringing in
spending-
$5 trillion in taxes, right? So we're bringing in $5 trillion every year
and they're
in
spending
taxes,
7.
and we're spending 7.
Okay,
And we've been doing
so
that every
let's
year
say-
since Clinton.
So let's say the taxes went up, and our revenue now was 10 billion.
But I'm saying, okay,
10
of that
trillion.
money though, the rich are paying most of it. How much more do you want to take? Again,
If we brought in 10 trillion, the spending would be like 13
okay, so I
trillion.
guess
Right.
what I'm getting at is why not have all those corporations that I talked about that have all that money on the balance sheet? Why not use that money?
why? Well, okay. How do you take it?
So
from them?
so here's what you do. So you can I know they probably already tried this. They're just taxing the corporations, right?
Okay,
Just
so
straight up
Apple
tax.
has, let's say Apple has $5 trillion. Okay, they have 5 trillion, or they say it's 10. They have $10 trillion in cash, and we say, okay, Apple, we're going to take 20%. How many years till that's gone? 5 years, roughly, whatever you talk. So I'm saying you're just taking their money away, and they're not replenishing it necessarily. You're just taking money out of. Now Apple has no money to spend on R&D or
See, no, that's
investing.
not true, though.
Yes,
That's not it.
absolutely is because you're
No,
taking
it's
their money
not.
away. You're taking away their money.
Okay, but I'm
to
talking
spend on other
about Apple
things.
has this much money on their balance sheet.
Right.
They spent this much on research and development.
Okay.
That's what I'm.
Isn't that just like you may, for all I know, you've got $1 million in the bank. Not my damn business, right? I may have $1 in the bank. You have $1 million. It's not my business. Because you have that money, you're probably going to spend it on things, and you're going to stimulate the economy. I know trickle-down economics. People argue with it, whatever. But again, Jeff Bezos bought a huge
Okay.
yacht, so clearly
I'm
trickle-down
saying
economics
either?
is a
Okay,
thing.
So the one option of taxing them straight up as an income tax for corporations, that's
They'll
one thing.
just they'll hide their toilets like J.B. Pritzker did. They'll have offshore accounts. They'll invest in. They'll hide their toilets, and that's what I'm saying. Is like this whole idea. Well, we're tax the rich. They have J.B. Pritzker has probably a team of accountants specifically just to help him hide his money. I don't have that.
Okay.
You don't have. I go to HR. You go to HR.
What
Block,
if you
right?
said? What if you said?
Go, use Chime.
But I'm like, use Chime and go to H&R Block. I can't afford an accountant to help me hide my money. You know what I mean? Like,
what if you said there's a limit to how much cash you can have on the balance sheet?
okay, well, but again, is it proportional though? Is it proportional? I mean, so isn't Apple became the biggest company not too long ago or whatever it was? I
Probably.
forget who it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Or
I go,
Microsoft,
shouldn't
maybe.
they
No, it was
proportionally
Apple,
like
last
my
year, so-
my business has a cash reserve in case we're short on cash and I got the hot water heat goes out, whatever. I have a cash reserve as a very small business. Apple has a cash reserve as a very big business. It's proportional. I mean, again, you may say it's not. I don't know, but I mean, again, that to them, that's what they consider an appropriate cash reserve. I don't. But again, to say
I'm saying,
so, if you're going to go after Apple for their cash reserve, why doesn't it trickle down to me and go, well, Chuck, you've got $10,000 saved in your home business?
that's so much different.
Who says that's
Because
the problem?
your
is
money,
it trickles down.
your money is not going to make a difference on the United States.
Neither does your grandma making $600 on Etsy, but we've got IRS agents hounding these people, asking them how much did you make
that
selling on
doesn't.
it? Right.
But
They
I'm talking
do
about.
it, though.
I'm not talking about whether you have thousands. Even if you had $1 million, that would not matter. I'm talking about $50 billion.
Okay.
That would matter when you got 20 companies that do that.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking
So
about.
I'm saying, but you already see what happened to Elon. They tax his unrealized gains. He had to sell stock to pay a bill. He had to sell stock because they taxed him. He didn't have the money to pay his taxes. Like how, you know what I mean? Like how do you get to the point
Well,
where
that's a bad idea.
right? I agree, but that's what I'm saying.
Unreal-
That's how they're going to end up having to do it, right? I mean, I don't know how.
No.
How are they going to do it? Are they going to create an
You
Apple
s-
tax?
You say you cannot have $100 billion left over of cash of profits just sitting there stacking up, and then
Okay.
next year you're going to have 120 billion.
So again, now you are becoming the heavy hand of government that is
and that's
interfering with
okay.
the market.
But that's okay when you're talking about the biggest the companies in the world that have all the money that are
well, again,
control
I'm not going to tell you it's a bad idea. I get where you're coming from, but just me as a libertarian, inherently, I say unless Apple is doing evil things, you know what I mean? Like unless they're building a Death Star with that money, like it's their business to do what they want with it. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just my opinion. Just like I have a business, I could be investing my business profits into Bitcoin. I could be investing in hookers and blow. You know, we've got mayors that are taking money from people and going to Vegas with it. I mean, we're like,
yeah,
okay.
but I think when those companies are so powerful and they're so the country is so dependent on those
Right.
for Americans
Too big to fail. Yes.
for Americans job wise looking
Right.
for a job, but also Americans consumer wise where
Right.
where their money goes.
Right.
Like how you said, when you go to all the exits, your options are Wendy's and Cracker Barrel and
But
all the
nobody
Walmart.
forced you to buy an Apple product. I have an Android. I've never owned an Apple. I probably never will.
Nobody forced
Nobody
you to
forced you to buy an Apple. And you can say if Apple bought all the Android manufacturers, I'd say okay, that's a problem. Now
But
I
is
have
it,
to buy
but
an
is it
Apple.
realistic to not buy those things?
To
That'd be
not
like
buy an Apple? I have an Android.
That'd be like if I told you.
It's unrealistic to not use Amazon. There are people. My wife gets 5 packages a day. My neighbor
Okay,
doesn't.
but no,
They go to the
that's
store.
not true. Because let's say we took the most successful companies like we're talking about, Apple, Microsoft, you could even put McDonald's, all this
Sure.
stuff, and Starbucks, Dunkin', all the
Okay.
big, and I said, you don't have to spend your money there. Well, you have no place to go then, because every single block in the
Right.
entire country are those chains.
And so what would happen again? So those biggest chains are the biggest lobbyists,
They're
right?
gonna-
So if they were to go away, what would happen? Mom and pops would pop. I go, well, they closed the Dunkin' and the Starbucks in my town. Guess what? I get to open a coffee shop now.
Yep.
McDonald's closed. I get to open a hamburger shop now. I'm going to take the old McDonald's. Just like, there's Pizza Huts
Why
now.
is
They're
that
like,
bad?
It's not bad. But I'm saying, but again, if government chooses the winner, again, did government go after Elon because it was the right thing, or did they go after him because he's anti-them?
Yeah.
Did he do it? Did they go after? Why did they go after Elon and not Bezos? I don't know. Did Bezos write a similar check? I don't know.
But you're saying that you don't have to give money to Apple or Amazon,
I don't.
and I think you do.
Why? How?
If government, if
I
they're-
think you do.
How though?
Because, okay, we could pick out one company. If I said the only company you can't buy from is Starbucks, that's realistic. But if we're looking at things like mega corporations that have a lot of control and power, and I said you can't buy from any company that has that that scale of power.
I mean, Chuck
you,
never.
you wouldn't be able to do
I
it.
said I have a choice though. I could say, I tell people all the time. I said if I have,
You wouldn't
if
have
I
a
go
choice,
into it,
though.
if I go out of town, I don't say, hey everybody, we drove 12 hours. Let's go to McDonald's. I say we drove 12 hours. We're gonna find a unique restaurant
Yeah, and
to
that's
where
good.
we are,
That's
and
good.
that's what I try to do. But I'm not forcing. I have friends. I have a joke about a friend. My friends flew to Italy. And they got Starbucks. I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? You're in the land of the best coffee in the world and you're drinking Starbucks. I mean, like, again, but that's your choice. It's your dollar, right? I mean, but the difference is if government is giving them money or giving them incentives or giving them unfair because they're lobbying, that's the problem.
I just think that on every single block in the entire country, it all looks the same.
Right.
You do not have options. You do not have options.
You do.
Not really.
There are plenty of mom and pops, but okay.
It does
So,
depend on where you live, though.
so put it
Depends.
this way: when they build
Yeah.
when they build a Walmart, okay, there's Walmarts all over here. They built Walmarts. They bought drive-in theaters, for instance. Walmart, like Walmart would set up outside of town. You had a whole you have Main Street, all these little mom and pops, and they built a Walmart out of town. All Main Street went out of business. Okay, I mean that's the whole thing. Is nobody's ever going to take no town. I'm going to show up and go, hey guys, I want to build a coffee shop. They go, we'll take the Walmart through eminent domain and then let you build a coffee shop. It's never going to happen. It goes the opposite way. The eminent domain to build a mall. They like if you go to Cherville, there used to be a cool golf course, a cool mini golf course I went to all the time when I was a kid, and now
What was it called?
it was called Cherville Golf. I used to go there and hit balls, and I used to go miniature golfing and ride go-karts. They took that. They didn't take it, but they basically took it to become a Walmart, to become a mall, right? I mean, that's the whole thing is they eminent domain mom and pop businesses for Walmart. Who does that? The government does that. I don't have the power to Walmart doesn't have an eminent domain power, but the government does. They have the power to eminent domain for a Whole Foods. Right now, right in this city right now, they want to eminent domain a haunted house that's been here for 35 years to build a Chili's or whatever. They're going to eminent domain a mom and pop because the haunted house looks like a haunted house and we want to get rid of it because it's ugly. I mean, government does that. They eminent domain, and they don't eminent domain Chili's and Starbucks. They eminent domain the mom and pop and then give it to Chili's or Starbucks or Walmart. That's the inherent problem with this is that government's picking and choosing. You go, mom and pop, we know you've been here 35 years. We're going to tear it down and we're going to build a Walmart.
And they're picking and choosing because those corporations pay lobbying.
And they pay, and they pay more taxes. So again, the same idea. Like, well, I'm going to have more taxes.
They pay
to
more
spend
taxes.
Yeah, Walmart pays ridiculous taxes.
Compared to a small business?
To a small business,
Yes.
absolutely. They have hundreds of employees. You have the
And more money.
they have the big box tax and all those taxes. They put special taxes. I mean, just on, like I said, they have big box taxes. They had big box minimum wages. Like the mom and pop had a different minimum wage than the Starbucks. You know
Okay,
what I mean?
then if the politicians are benefiting from favoring the bigger corporations, then there needs to be some law that
Who writes the laws? Going back to Nancy Pelosi, who writes? That's the inherent problem with this entire system. The guys who are benefiting the most are the ones that are writing the laws. Whether you're talking about your mayor or your congressman or your senator or whatever, that's the inherent
Okay, so then-
problem that we need to solve. And so I want to just move on real quick. As part of that, before we got to go, this is why I think, and this is why I've been hearing a lot about this, and it's a really interesting topic to me. I wanted to get your guys' take on this. My voice is about to go, so we got to wrap up. There are a lot of people that are saying, so I mean, imagine you guys are in a tough spot. Your generation, I got lucky. I bought a house. I'm in a good place financially. And I rode through this real estate boom, and hopefully it's not a bust. You guys are having inflation's high. Cars are expensive. Houses are expensive.
We're gonna need like 2 roommates to afford a 3-bedroom.
and how
Right,
you, and
even
how
then
you
you
said
probably can afford
the
it.
income does not
So the-
correlate.
So the question becomes, there's people that are saying that there is going to be a generational revolution in this country. Because imagine the older, like it used to be. So imagine like Social Security, for instance. Social
Yeah.
Security, when it first came out, Social Security was at 65, right?
Yeah,
Guess what the average life expectancy was?
probably like 62 or something.
63.
Okay.
They never planned on you collecting Social Security. It's literally
Yeah.
a Ponzi scheme, right? And so the problem is now life expectancy, like say 85.
Mm.
There's people that are outliving like what they paid in. There's people that are living to 100,
Yeah.
and they retired at 65. So and then
they,
those
they
people
need to
aren't
raise
dying.
that Social Security number.
They're
then.
not giving you your they're not dying. They're not giving you
Well,
inheritance. So you guys are
and
sitting here,
Not only that, but also the boomer generation. There's more of them.
Right. So there's
also that.
there's an imbalance. So there's fewer of you guys making less money, putting less money into a system that the boomers are going to collect on for 40 years because they're living longer. Again, it's an upside. It's literally a pyramid scheme. If anybody else came up with it, they'd be in jail, just like Ponzi. It's literally a Ponzi scheme. And so you're paying into a system. I'm paying into a system that I will probably never see. I am being forced by government. If I don't pay it, I go to jail. Men with guns will come and take me away if I don't pay into Social Security, and I will probably never see a dime of that. You guys need to start getting upset about that. You guys need to start thinking about that, going, the cost of everything has gone up. I can't put money away to buy a house. I can barely, cars are $100,000. How am I going to fix this? Your generation, I hope at some point, and I hope you guys, they go, okay, you're one of the good people.
Okay.
Your generation is going to literally have to have a revolution.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so we already brought this up before, but the prices of things, you could go back from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, whatever
Bread
decade.
basket, CPI, yes.
Yes, that. Whatever decade, especially from the 50s, but even if you start in the 70s or 80s, it's dramatically worse now than it is at any previous decade. So the cost of things have gone up, like how you just said, the houses, the cars, whatever, and the wages have not gone up
right.
anywhere even near. So do you think that over the next following decades that's just going to keep going?
Yes. I don't see. So there's going to be a breaking
point.
What's
the solution?
There's going to be a breaking point where you're going to get a paycheck and literally like half of your paycheck is going to go to like buying milk and eggs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's going to get to a point. Bacon's like $10. I remember when it was $1. I remember when I got gas one time for $1 when I first started driving. You know what I mean? Like gas is not as bad, but again, it's like I look at things. I remember when we used to have the $1 menu. Now it's the $5 menu.
So and don't they say like the average credit card debt is at all high?
We're at $1 trillion in credit card debt. Yes. So Americans are making the same amount of money. Things are costing more, but instead of cutting back on spending, I'm putting it on credit cards, which again, what happens? That's going to come back to bite us. Now now you guys have the highest, student loan debt ever, and then your cars are the most expensive ever. You've got a bunch of credit card debt.
So, but wouldn't that in a big way be solved if we did my idea where instead of these companies having all that money on the balance sheet, they paid more to the employees, and you made those wages for the corporations $25?
Okay, we just said that. What happened in California when they did that? They just closed the doors, and they got robots.
Wait, what do you mean?
You just said they should raise. They should raise rates.
Yes.
They should raise wages.
Yes.
They just locked the doors in California. Elon
But
moved to
that's
Texas.
one state, though.
Elon moved to Texas. Well, that's what I'm saying. We have that as an example. Elon moved to Texas. He didn't move there for the weather. He moved there because people are fleeing California, New York. My town has doubled in size because everybody moved from Illinois.
Yeah.
They didn't move here because of the weather. They
Yeah.
moved here because of the taxes and the freedom.
But I'm saying on a federal level.
Okay.
'Cause
So again,
then where do you go?
Okay, there you go. Right.
You can go to another country.
Yeah, you're right.
But that's not going to happen.
So I'm saying is that really the solution?
But why not though? Because where else is the money going?
Because like Josh just said, they're going to spend more money. They're not going to. They're not.
You don't
going
know that though.
We know
Stop
that.
it,
We can
Nico.
look at it historically.
Stop.
The more money they bring in, the more money they spend. We can see that historically.
They're gonna
Because-
find another $20 billion to give to
Yeah,
Ukraine.
right. I mean, nobody wants them.
You're probably right.
Nobody wants them to give money. The joke in Israel right now is we're funding Israel and Hamas. You know what I mean? Like
But, okay,
everybody's missiles are funded
if,
by
if,
us.
If the average American does not have that much in savings, they have a
Right.
bunch in debt.
Right.
The country has a bunch in debt.
Oh yeah.
The only one who doesn't is not in debt are all those corporations.
And Chicago is going to spend $3 billion on a new stadium. Indianapolis is going to spend $1 billion on a new soccer team because instead of you guys paying attention to this, they're showing you're like, oh, the soccer's on and football's on. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Is that's
but-
what people are
but
doing.
besides my idea,
Yeah.
what other route do you think is
You
even
spend
possible?
less money. You spend. Sorry, Ukraine, we can't fund your war. Sorry, Israel, you guys are good.
Okay, so
Sorry,
that's
Israel.
that's purely a government politician perspective of
Yes.
like the politicians need to have that viewpoint.
And this goes back to my jokes about bike trails and stuff. We shouldn't be building $6 million bike bridges that 5 guys use a day. You know what I mean? Like this is a spending issue that goes from building $100 million fighter jets to whatever, spending billions of dollars on trains. We don't have the money to do any of those
And
things.
so you're saying that politicians are none of them are proposing to spend less.
Nobody,
Said
other
Ron
than
Paul.
like Ron Paul did, but his son Rand Paul. There's very few
okay.
people. There's very few on either side that are having serious discussion. There hasn't
What
been
about Trump?
Trump talked about it. He spent $9 trillion. You can blame COVID, but I mean, again, like he talked about draining the swamp and balancing the budget. And he was, I mean, again, as a libertarian, I say he was just as bad as everybody before him. Every president spends more than, it doesn't matter. You can elect a bunch of Republicans or a bunch of Democrats. They're just going to keep spending more money. And it's partially
So
Congress.
in other words,
you,
that thing of Americans make the same money every decade or not, it's not really, they're not making the same, it's going up a couple percent every year. It's just nowhere near.
So you get a 4% raise and inflation's 8%.
Exactly.
You lost 4%.
So you're saying,
eventually that's going to be 100%.
so that's been going on for at least 70 years.
That's been going.
But you're saying that's going to go on every decade until a politician says we need to spend less.
Let me see if I can find the chart. You mentioned gold standard. Wages, let me see if I can find the chart. You will see this chart and go, okay, this makes sense. Let me see if I can find. So basically, wages in relation to the gold standard. So ever since we went off the gold standard, that's when things went off the rails on wages.
Here.
So you can, again, these charts are all easily available, and they're not from Fox News. So here's the chart. Oh, no, that's the productivity chart. But
Here, wait.
same idea is that basically wages remained flat, costs went up.
Right.
And that happened around the time of the gold standard.
But what I'm trying to say is the only real solution is to find a politician that says, or when the government says we're going to spend less than what we made until that happens, then this is going to keep going on.
Yes. There's nobody is even talking about spending less money. There's not been a president since Bill Clinton in 1992 that's talked about spending less. There hasn't even been a discussion about spending less money.
And that might just be like our capitalism culture, though.
It could be.
Honestly.
I mean, it could be a number of things, but I'm saying there's one solution, and it is spending less money. It is not taxing the rich. It is not printing more money.
You're right. I think you're right.
So then what do we do? We've got two parties that don't want to do it.
I think your idea is better than mine.
Well, I'm not saying there's. I don't want you to say that.
But that's true though, because my idea is like possible. Like it might work.
But again, so like here's the whole thing is that what are we getting? You know, we're spending again. You know, the new generation of stealth fighter jets. We're in the trillions. We spend trillions of dollars. I read about all this stuff. We have black budget projects and all this stuff.
That's by gender. So
look
at the gender gap.
Well, the gender gap's closing. The gender
right,
gap's
I know
closing.
that's
right.
what I'm saying.
So again, if I'm a company, why would I want to hire men if women are cheaper? I'm like, I'm going to hire more women. Like if that, you know what I mean? Like that's silly. But again, there's no other solution other than spending less money. And if neither party wants to spend less money, what do we do? I don't know.
Okay. U.S. family incomes have grown since the 50s.
Right. But how much has inflation been? So this doesn't show inflation, though. This is showing growth in numbers. That looks impressive. But what's the inflation? Inflation's like that. You know what I mean? It's like
I know the housing prices from I think 1970 to today, 8 times more.
Right.
So 1970 was 60,000. So almost double in income, but 8 times more in housing prices.
So as I'm saying is that these people in the 50s bought a house.
They had good deals back then.
So here, think about this.
Man.
So people in the 50s. This is a lady in orange is a school teacher. She bought a house for 1 year's wages, right? Now her house is worth like $3 million.
Yeah.
But you make 75, and you want to buy a little old lady's house that's worth $2 million.
So the solution to afford anything is just go into a bunch of debt.
Right.
And pay a bunch of interest.
Right. And so what happens? You spend your entire life.
That means I'm buying Visa and MasterCard stock.
Right.
That's what that means.
But again, they privatize. But again, think about you turn 18, and the first thing they do is give you $100,000 in debt. You spend the rest of your life trying to bail out of that. So you get school debt, and then Visa is standing on your college campus trying to give you a credit card to go with it. And then you got to buy a car that you can't afford because they're $50,000.
Okay, then
so you're debt slave.
Next thing I'm going to be on the lookout for, politician who says let's spend less.
Okay.
I'll be on the lookout.
So now I have to invite you to the libertarian meeting next time we have one.
Yeah, but here's the problem with libertarians.
Okay, well, let's not go. We don't have time.
No, I'm not saying policy-wise. I'm not talking about policy-wise. I'm talking about realistic wise,
right? Because people aren't paying attention. That's why they don't vote libertarian. They don't care about spending because people care about stuff. I want my bike trail. I want my train. We're in debt. I don't care.
Well, I don't think a libertarian's gonna win though.
Really? Well, that's the problem because we don't give you stuff. People come up to libertarian and go, what are you going to do for me? I go, nothing. I'm going to stay out of your way and let you live your life. And I'm going to try to spend less money so you have money to
Yeah,
spend.
but don't you think
That's not exciting. That's like me telling you go on
you're
a
right.
diet.
You're right.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Is it the libertarian problem or is it the average American that couldn't even tell me within trillions of
I'm
dollars?
not saying it's a
what the debt
libertarian.
is?
I'm saying it's a popularity problem.
Absolutely.
I'm saying-
absolutely. I don't disagree with you.
I'm
one bit,
saying the
'cause-
Republicans or Democrats, if one of them said we're going to spend less,
right.
that would be interesting.
I don't think it would. I don't think
Why?
they would get money. I don't think they would get enough. There's a whole philosophy about politicians. You have a congressman, whether he's Democrat or Republican, that goes to Washington and said, I'm not going to vote along party lines. I'm going to do what's best. They sit him down and go, either you play ball or we're going to replace you. That's what happens. There are plenty of stories of politicians that went to Congress and said, I'm going to do what's best for the people. I'm not going to vote with my party. And then Nancy Pelosi or whoever took them aside. Guys whose names they didn't even know, just some guys in suits, threatened the congressman and said, play ball or else.
Yeah.
They don't even know who the guy, just a bunch of guys in suits came in and said, play ball or else. We know where your family lives. Or they show them pictures of Kennedy. I mean, seriously, those politicians said they show me a picture of Kennedy's brain and go, "You want to play ball or not?" No joke, that happens. I mean, that's the whole question. That's a whole nother discussion about how disgusting our government is. Is there a shadow? You really think Biden's in charge? You think Biden's sitting up at night making decisions? No, he's in bed eating ice cream, and there's a whole bunch of people whose names we don't know making decisions.
Yeah.
And Trump was the same way. Think about this. Trump says he's going to drain the swamp. There's millions of people in Washington. There's all that money in Virginia. You think Trump's going to one man? I don't care if he's a Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian. One man is not going to fix that. And if he tried,
He mixed things up quite a bit, though.
Right, but I'm saying there's people right now that said if Trump does what he's going to do, his head's going to blow up like Kennedy's. I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Like that's me. That's what I believe. So.
Yeah. Anything else that?
Yeah, I
we
do.
wrap
We
up?
gotta.
Yeah, I
We'll
do.
do it again. Okay, go ahead. We got to wrap up, and we'll do it again soon.
Okay,
Yeah, real
so
quick,
in
you got something
other
else?
no, because so it sounds like
He's going to call me at 2 a.m. Like, here's the thing.
I know he's
I
definitely
probably
says-
will.
Probably will.
I probably will. The true solution here is probably that the government needs to say we want to spend less. But you're
print
saying
less money.
that's hard to sell, and that's probably not
It's a
going to
hard
get
sell,
votes.
right.
You're probably not going to get votes.
So we end up like Rome. If people don't wake up, as I'm saying about your generation, if your generation goes, why is this happening to me? I'm seeing TikToks and stuff of your generation going,
Yep.
why is everything so expensive? Why am I making $15 an hour and I spend my entire paycheck just grocery shopping,
Yep.
or even just whatever, putting gas in my car and paying my cell phone? I have no money left.
Yep.
Your generation needs to stop and go, what's going wrong here? I mean, again, it's like what's going wrong, but
So
they're not going to
you know-
see. The news isn't going to tell them about the debt.
Right.
TikTok's not going to talk to them about the debt.
Well,
Their
they
friends
might.
on Facebook. Well, they
I'll
might.
make a TikTok today, and then
Go
it'll
ahead,
be on
make
there.
it. But I'm saying right. But I'm saying that's not it's a boring topic to people until they're.
It's boring, but at the same time, I think that could catch on, though. I still think that maybe in a couple of years from now we could
and
see that.
it's an interesting thing because when I was younger, like when I was college age, there was the whole thing called the Ron Paul revolution. Rand Paul's dad, and people
Okay.
were going to college campuses to hear Ron Paul talk about freedom, liberty, and less government. And then one generation later, the colleges were hearing Bernie Sanders talk
Yeah.
about socialism and big government and taxing the rich.
That's why I think though is one problem now. Even with the internet, I think we go through like so much. So like one topic, then it's on to the next
Right.
real
Yep.
quick. We kind of can't like grasp on one particular thing.
But again, this topic affects everything from the car, your food.
Yeah, look at everything we just talked about.
Everything in your life revolves around I have to spend money. I have to make money and I have to spend money. And
Yeah.
and basically it's impossible for a young person with I run a small business. I'm not going to pay somebody with little experience $20 an hour, $50 an hour.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I'm going to go find a robot that does their job. So that's what I'm saying. It's nothing against the person. It's a purely financial decision for me.
Yeah.
And then and that's what I'm saying is that you guys are your generation is going to kind of be stuck where it's like, I'm making a little bit of money. I can't save money to buy a house. I can't, like if my car breaks, I'm screwed. And that's what I'm saying. At a certain point, your generation needs to go, what's going on here? Like what's happening? This is the first generation. This came out the other day. This is the first generation that a 30-year-old is doing worse than their parents when they were 30 years old. Every generation has done better than the last, ever since, whatever, going
I
back.
can see that. Yeah.
And this is the first generation that a 30-year-old is doing worse than his parents did.
I can see
And
that.
that's going to get worse because of the debt spiral. Eventually, that 30-year-old's going to go, well, like, I work my butt off. I work 3 jobs just to pay for groceries.
No,
and
how
I
you're
can't
saying
get
how you're
anywhere.
saying eventually. Well, if it gets worse every decade, then at some point we're going to say, okay, well,
Here, let me throw a wrench into that.
now my
thought.
paycheck can't buy me whatever.
Okay, so think about
some
this, though.
food.
So I've got a whole bunch of people my age and older that have houses that are worth like $500,000. I'm like, cool, it's worth $500,000. And I'm getting ready to retire, go to Florida. Who's going to buy my house if you guys don't have any money? What's going to happen to the housing market?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
here's this idea though. If we're talking about generation and wealth and stuff, that's what I said earlier about the boomers. If there's more boomers and they sell their houses or something,
They're all going to start dying off,
Yeah.
and their kids are going to go, well, I'm going to sell my boomer parents' house.
Yeah, but who's gonna?
They
buy
bought
it?
it for
But I'm
$20,000 and 3 raspberries, and now it's worth $2 million. I'm trying to sell it. Nobody has money to buy the
but
house.
that price would come.
So what's going to happen to the market then?
It
If
comes
that
down.
house
It comes
right
down.
now we say it's worth $2 million, but nobody can afford to buy it. Is it going to
down.
come down gradually, or is it?
Yeah.
You think so? You think it's going to
It
be
would have
gradual?
to. It would have to.
You think it's going to be? Were you around in 2008? Like stuff, it was insane.
Okay, maybe it's not gradual.
That's what I'm saying.
That's okay. That's
right.
okay.
But I'm saying that causes decades of, like my house. That's a decade that you will spend if the housing market crashes tomorrow, you will spend the rest of your life dealing with that, making up the money. Like you'll get laid off, so you're not saving money. You're not, you know what I mean? Like that will be a generational problem.
Yeah, you're
You'll
right.
spend the rest of your life trying to
right.
make up for that 10 years that we were in a recession.
Yeah, you're.
And so your generation needs to decide. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, no offense to your generation, they're not paying attention to this. They're worried about, even like talking about going back to Dylan, we're all worried about like whose bathroom we're using. We're not worried. Everybody, I don't care what bathroom you use, this debt affects you. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care what color you are. I don't care whatever. I don't care your pout. It affects everybody. But we're all arguing about what bathroom we use and all this nonsense instead of everybody coming together and going, I don't care what you look like or who you are, what you do. We can't afford anything,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? And maybe that's by design. Maybe it's by design to argue about bathrooms instead of saying why can't we afford anything. I don't know. It's a good place to end it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so y'all good? You still want to argue
No,
with him?
well, I could, but no, I think that's a good
Is
idea.
I could, yeah. Well, thanks, Chuck.
That's
Another
fun.
round of applause.
Thank you. We'll do it again in a couple months when you guys recover from this show.
Yeah.
When the economy's
I would
even
love to
worse.
if you have a friend that's on the opposite side of me on this stuff. There's a lot of people on the opposite side of me. I love
No,
having
I have a really
debates.
good person that would be a really good debate for you.
Okay, somebody on the left that doesn't agree with that.
No,
I mean,
they're not on the left.
well, I mean, just saying there are people that believe print money, tax the rich, and they think it'll solve the problem. Let's have
Mhm.
that debate. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'd be good for your audience and for you guys to hear both sides of the argument and go, which side makes more sense? To
Yeah.
me, I always look at it as we've tried it, it failed in government. It's like we tried it. Let's do it again. Let's spend more money. Didn't work. Try it again. Spend more money. I'm like, maybe we should stop trying those things and do something different.
So I think the real question is, how do you get it to where people think we need to spend less?
I need them to figure that out before it's too late. If this country gets to $100 trillion in debt and our entire tax collection goes to the debt service, it's too late. We are Rome. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like, go watch. And
what happens with Rome? Then?
go watch. We talked about this last. Go watch Netflix. There's a whole series about Rome, and they talked
It
about
collapses, and then what?
It collapses. Then what?
Then you just restart.
Yeah. Then what?
That would be cool. That'd be a.
That would not be
But
cool.
but I
huh?
said all the time. I said I wouldn't have. I love hot showers. I love hot coffee. I like pizza. You'd be like scavenging through
Yeah.
garbage cans to
Really?
find. I'm saying it's like the zombie apocalypse. You know what I mean? Like it's the people could survive, but it's not going to be. It's going to be ugly. I don't.
It'll be like
I
the
don't
Middle
wanna,
Ages or something.
Right. I mean, we're going
What did Rome do?
Rome collapsed, and then
And then what though?
well, again, they rebuilt. Rome's still there. You can go there right now and see the ruins of Rome. I mean, it collapsed, but it,
Yeah, but for what they were back then, they
Right.
were kind of like us, like a powerhouse, really.
right. But then they grew too big and they spent too much money, and they were always at war with the Germanic tribes and these tribes and these tribes, and they collapsed upon themselves. That's the whole thing. Rome wasn't defeated by anybody but Rome. Rome defeated itself, and that's what I'm afraid that the United States is going to defeat itself.
That sounds like us. That'll probably happen.
Right. And or we could just stop spending money. You know what I mean? Like we could just cut back. We don't even have to stop spending money. We're not that far off. We're a couple trillion off. We just need to cut back on. It's like going on a diet. We don't need to stop eating. We just need to go on
Yeah.
a diet. But everybody's like, why go on a diet when you go to the buffet? I mean, that's what Congress is. It's like, we're going to the buffet. You want that? You want that? You want that? Let's go to the buffet. Let's all eat. That's what Congress is.
And you don't even really see that much benefit either.
You don't. Your roads suck. We have the highest taxes. Our roads
like
suck.
Infrastructure
Infrastructure's
bill
crumbling.
Well, infrastructure bill wise, but also like Ukraine wise.
Right.
There's a bunch of ways where like we don't there's lots of money going out, but we don't really see too much benefit from it.
Yeah. There's $100 million fighter jets that fly over your head occasionally. I mean, that's where the money's going. It's going basically to the military-industrial complex. It's going for unfunded liabilities. It's going to Social Security because Social Security's upside down. It's like you said, there's not enough money going in for the boomers, and people blame Reagan and whatever. Reagan took money, whatever. It's an upside-down system. You can't have 5 guys supporting 10 guys. There's no.
Unless they're really rich.
Well, we already do. We take 75% of their money. So, I mean, I'm saying, so that's your goal, is like tax the rich.
The problem is those 5 guys are poorer than the 10 guys.
Right. So then how is that fair? Like how? But they paid into the system. So they made a promise to those boomers. They said, you pay into the system and we'll give you money. They made a promise to them just like they're making a promise to you. The problem is they're not going to keep it to you. And what are you going to do about it? Go, what am I going to do? Fight the government? Give me my money back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to work out that well. But, yeah, thank you all for tuning in.
We could do it. They did it on January 6th.
I don't want to be on another list. I'm not going to comment. I'm on enough lists.
But, yeah, thank you all for tuning in for this episode 50 of Stock Talk with Josh, Nico, and our friend of the show, love this guy, Chuck Poland. So,
Thank you,
another
guys.
round of applause.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in on WJLB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. Thank you for the listeners that be tuning in on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And sometime this week it will be on YouTube, the full video. So thank you all again for all the support and love. And y'all have a good one, and to greener days ahead.